What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 72 of the Silver and Gold podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
And today, we haven't gone live for maybe like 2 weeks, and the 49ers just threw out the bat signal, okay? They wanted us back, okay? We were actually planning on going live this weekend anyway to talk about, potential free agents, but fuck that. We are already going to talk about this feels like the first trade that has happened all offseason, or at least first significant one. The 49ers have traded Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders for a 5th-round pick. Man, first off, I just want to say thank you to Deebo Samuel because, I have been critical of him over the past year and really over the past couple years for, kind of the inconsistency with, his health regarding, like maybe he would disagree, but like I don't feel like he has been in the best of shape. And really, I feel like the best season we got out of Deebo Samuel was 2021. But that being said, that season, that 2021 season we got out of Deebo was the best wide receiver season that I have seen out of any 49er in my lifetime. That season was incredible. I'm actually going to pull up his stats from that season. Deebo Samuel 2021 stats, because it's actually crazy. He let's see. In 2021, he had he played 16 games. He had 77 receptions for 121 yards. He had 77 receptions on 121 targets for 1,405 yards, which if you take averages, that's 18.2 yards per reception. He had 6 touchdowns, and really that doesn't tell the whole story because Deebo was literally the entire offense that year, and the 49ers started off so slow, and he put the team on his back that season. It was like, I think they were like 3-5, and the offense was really like kind of a like, end around to Deebo, screen to Deebo, bubble screen to Deebo. Like, he was literally everything. He would play running back. The yardage that I even listed doesn't even account for his rushing. In 2021, he had 59 carries for 365 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. That season in particular, that's what got him paid. He came in as a rookie in 2019 on the first team that went to the Super Bowl under the Shanahan era. And, he arguably was on his way to becoming the Super Bowl MVP in that first Super Bowl. But then for unquestionable reasons, they kind of moved away from him from the in the second half. And really, that's like kind of my first memory of Deebo really playing a lot in the backfield. And I guess I'm all over the place because really my feelings are all over the place because I'll be critical of Deebo here and there, but all in all, I think his tenure with the Niners was a good one. He was a fan favorite player. He was a team captain who just could not consistently, be in the best of shape, right? At the time that they extended him, I kind of felt like it was a mistake to give him top dollar because he was never an elite route runner. Okay. His elite skill set was that you would give him the ball and he would break a bunch of tackles and possibly he would make something out of nothing and it would possibly be a touchdown. He would at very least gain a bunch of yardage running through people and wear down the defense. Players like that in the NFL don't last very long. Deebo right now is 28 and he requested a trade, and we talked about that in our last stream, but it was finally time to move on. And I think that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, finally understood that. John Lynch, a month ago or so, said that they're not interested in, just giving away good players. And, I still think Deebo can, do something in the NFL. And I think honestly, it's a good trade for Washington because I still think Deebo is good. I just think that he's way too overpriced for the 49ers right now because they are a team that needs to be, they're not just one player away. I think that freeing up that money that is going to Deebo Samuel will help them rebuild the offensive line and defensive line. And, in a year or two, Deebo is still probably going to be expensive, but he's not going to be what he was when they paid him and made him that expensive. I don't think it was ever going to be the case, but really I take the overall experience of Deebo on the 49ers very positively. And yeah, I mean, Mike, what are your immediate thoughts of the trade?
My immediate thoughts were, one, it wasn't shocking because just a day or two prior, the word started coming out like, yeah, it sounds like the Niners have talked to teams or the teams most interested in Deebo were the Commanders, Texans, and maybe there was rumors about the Broncos, but that was never a thing apparently. And then somebody tweeted like the day of the trade, like the morning of, like, yeah, the Broncos and Texans are out. And I think they even said, and I wish I could just say who it was and give them credit, but they were like, that really just leaves the Commanders. And then like hours later, the trade was done for a 5th-round pick. And so I wasn't shocked. Like it really didn't move me at all. I was like, yep, there it is, And then I noticed a lot of Niner fans, I think, were a little bit like, wow, really? A 5th-round pick? And again, like the trade didn't move me in the sense like it didn't shock me. Like the compensation that you guys got for Deebo made sense to me for a multitude of reasons. One is contract.
Yep.
Two, his production recently. Three, his age. And I think also the fact that he wanted out so bad, and I think the Niners taking a 5th-round pick tells me that they wanted to get him out. Like,
yeah,
not necessarily like we'll take anything for him, but just, yeah, let's just get this done.
Mm-hmm.
Before free agency, before teams sign wide receivers and fill up spots. So
yeah, they were able to get a 5th-round pick out of it, but and I guess the good part about it is that Washington is going to take on Deebo's contract, but there is the messy side of it where the 49ers are on the hook for dead cap space, but I don't, as far as I'm concerned, the Yorks don't have to pay dead cap. It's money that is eliminated from what you are able to spend on other players. Am I right?
Ask it again.
So like dead cap money, you're not paying to anybody. It's money that you cannot spend, right? So like let's just say you have $250 million salary cap, and then you cut a player and that imposes a $10 million cap. You can only spend $240 million on players.
I think dead cap might have to do with like players that are not on the roster, but you're still either paying or you had future years on those contracts that are now hitting, something like that, where it's like the player isn't on the roster, but that money's dead because you're still having to pay it one way or another, something like that.
Mm-hmm. I still, if somebody in the comments could like verify that part for me, I'm pretty sure that you don't have to pay the dead cap. You just cannot like pay the full on salary cap amount. You have to decrease whatever the cap is by that amount. That's my understanding of it. But
yeah.
Like in terms of like Deebo the player, I'm always going to remember, the boombox and like, setting the tone for games. Like he really was that guy for, for I'd say 2019 he was solid. 2020 he was, injured and like came to camp out of shape. 2021 was first team all pro. Like, I honestly think he should have won Offensive Player of the Year over Cooper Kupp that year. That's my hot take. Rams fans will disagree, and probably most NFL fans might disagree. I might be sounding a little bit biased, but if you see the way that he put the team on his back, I think it's crazy. And then look at the Rams now. They don't even need Cooper Kupp anymore. They're doing what they did with Cooper Kupp, but with Puka. I don't know any other player besides Deebo Samuel that could have done what Deebo did in 2021. That's my argument.
But Cooper Kupp got a triple crown, and nobody else did that year. Like, Jamar Chase did that this year, but it's very rare.
Did Jamar Chase win Offensive Player of the Year?
It was probably a quarterback, or
no, it was Saquon.
Maybe I'm tripping. Saquon, there you go. So, yeah.
I think it was Saquon.
It was Saquon.
Yeah, but I'm going to go ahead and pull up, just a couple figures right here, or this article first. It's from 49er Web Zone. It is, sort of talking about the cap space where the 49ers cap space drops to an estimated $34 million after the Deebo Samuel trade. This is from David Bonilla at 49er Web Zone. So essentially, I'm not going to read the entire thing, but my main takeaways from it is that overall, there's a $31.55 million dead cap hit because they chose to trade him before June 1st, and it would have been less after June 1st. So before this trade, the 49ers had $50.2 million in cap space. Now, according to overthecap.com, it is now $34 million, and which I guess comes out to a $16.2 million drop. But if they had chosen to move Deebo after the June 1st designation or whatever, the June 1st deadline, the cap space number would have been significantly less. So we can look at right now what it actually is instead of talking about what it really could have been. But the 49ers are going to be on the books for Deebo for $15.825 million, according to Spot Rack. And then in 2026, they're still going to, be on the hook. And this is void money or dead cap money, I still think, because Commanders are taking on the contract. But $13.7 million in 2026, and then $8.9 million in 2027. It's very confusing to look at like salary cap numbers, I think, because so many people report so many different things.
Yeah, I want to say void years are maybe part of what I was talking about earlier of like future years, like on extensions or like restructuring contracts to save cap space, which the Niners were pretty notorious the past few years for doing. Adding void years to contracts to gain more cap space that season, right? Well, eventually you have to pay it. So in 2027, you're paying $8.89 million because you saved money in 2023 or something. But yeah, the dead money is where it gets confusing for sure. And I think the way that you described it earlier was correct.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and take some comments. But the last thing I do want to say about this, the Deebo Samuel thing is, just I want to thank him for his hard work on the 49ers. I wish that we could have gotten a Super Bowl or two, with him on the team. And, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. And you can add his name to the list of, great 49ers that did not win a Super Bowl. So he's there with, he's not on the same level as like, Patrick Willis, Joe Staley, Frank Gore. He's not there, but it's just like, if you think about players over the last 2 decades who have had opportunities to win, or I guess the last decade and a half, who have had opportunities to win and just didn't. Deebo is definitely like up there. He was one of the stars of this, current regime. And, it kind of makes you think about who's next. So I kind of anticipate that the next two players that are going to be cut or moved are going to be Javon Hargrave, which I think is no secret to anybody, but Kyle Juszczyk is probably next. So that's just my interpretation. For all I know, Juice can be here. But I think it's also big, too, because Shanahan and Deebo were very, close friends. And, it's like ripping the Band-Aid off. They finally did it. They should have done this last year when they drafted Pearsall, but it better late than never, right? Joel says, yo, Joel, dude, I'm so sorry to everybody in the chat that we're starting so much later than normal, but like I just said a minute ago, better late than never. Papa J, tuning back in, says 77 receptions for 121 yards sounds more like his 2024 season. Yeah, definitely for that Rams game. But yeah, I just read it wrong, or I guess I misspoke. Yeah, 77 catches for like 1,400 something yards. My bad. Also, Papa J, I think you definitely watch Grant Cohn because I saw you in the comments of Grant's stream the other day. So welcome in. Always welcome people who watch Grant. Grant's a friend of the show. We hope to have him on before the season starts again. So Papa J says, I agree. In the long run, it's better for all parties involved. Yeah. It's money that's already been paid. Oh, so this is about dead cap. Papa J, thank you for clarifying. It's money that's already been paid, and it also goes against the cap. Okay, so it is money that, it's not money that vanishes. It's been paid. My understanding of it is it's like a credit card. It's something that's been spent, but it's being paid for throughout the years. Okay. Dead cap money comes from bonuses and signing bonuses. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why they make it so confusing. Papa J says, sorry, sometimes I misbehave on Grant's show. You know what? It would be weird if people behaved. Okay. That comment section under Grant's show, I don't know what you said specifically. That comment section under Grant's show, I mean, that could just be a show all in its own. It's a war zone in there. But that brings us to our next topic. Unless, Mike, you had anything that you wanted to say before we move on.
I got nothing else.
I do have something. Mick Lombardi and Clay Kubiak have been promoted. They were, previously for the 49ers, they were. Mick Lombardi was a senior offensive assistant, and now he is going to be the quarterback's coach. Clay Kubiak was formerly an offensive passing game specialist, for the 49ers, and now he is the offensive coordinator. The really interesting thing for me about this is just that Mick Lombardi is stepping into Brian Griesi's role, which you might think, like, did the 49ers fire Brian Griese? Like, what's going on? Like, is he going to another team? No, that's not the case. He's just not going to be coaching altogether. And really, like, I can't blame Brian Griese because I've only heard stories about how difficult it is to be an NFL like assistant coach, where you will go into the building and be there for like literally the entire day, and you won't see the sun very much. You're watching film, you're getting players ready, you're in the facility, you're not getting a lot of daylight, you're not seeing your family. Like, apparently it's a really, really tough job to be, an assistant coach and probably a head coach too in the NFL. But yeah, man, I guess Brian Griese just, didn't necessarily feel like it was for him. Maybe he'll be coaching in the future. I think John Lynch left that door open. but he just had no desire to return to the team. And you know, uh, I want to wish Brian Greasy good luck, because I feel like Brian Greasy probably had a little bit to do with, or at very least a little bit to do with, Brock Purdy emerging in that 2022 season. I want to say that Greasy vouched for Purdy a little bit, kind of behind the scenes before they drafted him. And, you know, it's been, I'd say Purdy has been one of the consistent players on the team. And God, was Brian Greasy an upgrade over Rich Scangarillo. I do not like Rich Scangarillo at all. I don't think he's a very good quarterback coach. But like I said, I'm not inside the building to really tell you how, like, the quality of the coaching, but I can only tell you my perspective as a fan. So Brian Greasy so far, for his tenure was just from 2022 to 2024. And now we can kind of look at Mick Lombardi's history, and then we'll look at Clay Kubiak's history and kind of, see what experience they have and what they might bring to, the future for coaching for the Niners. But Mick Lombardi has been around the 49ers for a while. He started in the NFL. His first NFL coaching gig was as an assistant to the head coach in 2013 for the 49ers. And then he remained with the 49ers up until 2016 with different positions. So in 2014, he was an offensive assistant, 2015, defensive assistant, 2016, offensive quality control coach. And then he went over to the Jets, maybe bounced around a little bit from 2017 up through 2023 until he eventually came back. So 2017 and 18, he was the offensive assistant for the Jets. He was an assistant quarterbacks coach in New England in 2019. So he did work with Tom Brady, for Brady's last season with the Patriots. And then with the Patriots, I guess they didn't want him working with the quarterbacks because that was Brady's last year. And they moved him to wide receivers coach. And then 2022 and 2023, he was the offensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. Mike, what are your thoughts on his tenure with the Raiders? Do you really remember much from 2022, 2023?
I remember there was one preseason game where Josh McDaniels had him call plays, and I wasn't able to gauge any sort of impressiveness from that. But otherwise, McDaniels was the one calling plays, so I never. For me, I know there's a lot that goes into being an offensive coordinator, not just calling plays. Granted, the Raiders' offense absolutely sucked with Josh McDaniels and Mick Lombardi. But obviously, it was just easy to blame McDaniels. But basically, I couldn't gauge whether Mick Lombardi was a good or bad presence to the Raiders' offense. I think the way that I had felt was he didn't have experience, I don't think, as an offensive coordinator coming into the Raiders. Like, he was like an ex-receivers coach or something with the Patriots. So then, obviously, McDaniels calling the plays as the head coach, it's like, well, I can have an offensive coordinator, basically just a glorified wide receivers coach who got promotion on a new team. That's just the way that I felt about him.
Yeah. He did come back. So this past season, he was with the 49ers, and he served as a senior offensive assistant. And then, this year, obviously, he gets the promotion, taking over for Greasy. And really, I guess, like, what I feel about it is, I feel a couple things. He is definitely experienced in the NFL. He's been around the Niners for 12 years now. Well, not for 12 years, but 12 years ago, he was with the 49ers for a couple years. Now he's been back for a couple more. I guess what I'm trying to say here is he is not a quarterback specialist. He's kind of I guess the term would kind of be a cliche. He's a football guy because he's kind of jumped all over the place as a defensive assistant, offensive assistant, all these different positions. I would not be shocked if quarterback's coach was not the final position that he holds as a coach. Like next year, for all I know, he could be the next offensive coordinator or he can be a senior offensive assistant. And they bring, let's just say the quarterbacks don't perform well this year. Then they'll get somebody who actually played the position and specializes in coaching quarterbacks, to I guess coach the players. I really see this more as he might bring a mental like a football IQ perspective rather than a, like actual quarterback mechanics perspective. I don't think that Brock Purdy is necessarily, well, assuming that it's going to be Brock Purdy this year. I don't think Brock Purdy is in a stage right now in his career where he needs to be, I guess, refining his mechanics, more so being able to read a defense, reading defenses, and just kind of using his brain, because he's already proven that, I mean, in the NFL, his athleticism is good enough, but this past season, throwing interceptions late in games was the difference. Those close games where the 49ers have to come back, Brock Purdy's got to be a little bit better. Obviously it will be much better if the 49ers can bolster their offensive line and, reestablish a really good run game and be a run first football team. But I think Mick Lombardi, as long as he's able to mentor Brock Purdy and, get him well prepared to read defenses and, be able to know where all the players are going to be at, I think that's that is probably more beneficial to Purdy than somebody who specializes a little bit more in the mechanical side. And yeah, I mean, only time will tell if this is going to be a good hire. But we move on to Clay Kubiak. Clay Kubiak in the NFL started and really has just been with the 49ers since 2021. So hasn't really gone anywhere else. And, he's another, like, I don't want to say that he's in the position that he's in because, he's related to the Kubiak family. I think his dad is Gary Kubiak. Yeah. His dad's Gary Kubiak. Gary Kubiak won a Super Bowl with the Broncos in 10 years ago. And really, maybe Shanahan and the Kubiaks are pretty close, and he's trying to give Clay an opportunity to, advance his career. So right now he's serving as the offensive coordinator, but I don't think that he'll be calling plays. It won't be the first time that Clay Kubiak has called plays for the 49ers. I want to say that there was a game late last season where he was calling plays, and it was probably the Cardinals game, the final game of the season. I think that was Clay Kubiak calling the game, and it was creative. That gives me a little bit more confidence with him. It's just what really like tempers my confidence or expectations with Clay Kubiak, being the offensive coordinator, is that Shanahan calls the plays. It's Shanahan's team. I don't think he's going to defer the play calling to Kubiak, but if we can reinstate, the motions, the motions never left. The jet sweeps, which I guess is tough because Deebo's gone. They're going to have to find another player, but just kind of being more of a creative offense where they can, have more screens, do like the Jimmy G offense. You know what I mean? Like reinstate that to help Purdy out, and then let Brock excel at what he's able to do and read the defense, make quick decisions. I hope that Clay Kubiak can not call plays, but give Shanahan another perspective of what they should be running right now. And more specifically, hopefully in the final 10 minutes of the Super Bowl this year, when the 49ers are up by 10, he can tell Shanahan to run the ball. You know what I mean? I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. Let's see. Papa J says, last season was really rough, so I don't blame Brian Greasy for wanting to leave and take a break. Yeah, I mean, it was a rough season. And then also, too, it's like Brian Greasy, what more can he do? Like, he was a former player, and then he was a play-by-play announcer for, live games. I don't know if there's much more that he can provide Purdy. And then also it's a time-consuming job. Like, I understand him not wanting to come back, because he's already rich. He already has money. He could probably make more money being an announcer, if he was able to get his old job back. Why? Like, I don't think he was a bad coach. I think he was pretty good. But maybe Brock and the 49ers need something different. But I really liked Brian Greasy. So, we'll see how that will have an effect on the quarterbacks. Papa J said, I'm not so confident that Mick can take Brock to the next level. Yeah, I mean, I guess where I'm a little pessimistic is just that he doesn't specialize in quarterbacks, but if he can, I guess improve Brock's football IQ and what to expect, like, reading defenses and certain coverages and helping understand different protections and where pressure is going to be coming from, I think that probably would help Brock grow in areas where I guess this past season, he struggled a little bit. Papa J says, the Kubiak family is overrated, just like the Shanahan family, in my opinion. Yeah, man. I couldn't tell you about the Kubiak family, but definitely I think that people, if Kyle Shanahan's last name was not Shanahan, and I know this is something Grant has said many, many times, I don't think that he would be the coach right now of the 49ers. If it was Kyle, I know Grant says banana hands, but I'm just going to go. If it was Kyle Smith, I think that Jed would have fired him by now. But since so many people think so highly of the Shanahan family and think so highly of Kyle Shanahan and how much of a genius he is, I think it's like, well, who are you going to move on to? There's no clear-cut answer that is going to be better. So that's why the 49ers haven't moved on. Kubiak definitely needs to tell Kyle not to abandon the running game so we can run the clock out. Yeah, I've been literally begging Kyle Shanahan for years to just run the ball when you're leading late in close games. But he just will not do it. He will not. He will strictly not do it just to spite everybody who says that he should. Mike, speaking of Shanahan, can I move on to our next topic that focuses on him?
Sure.
All right. I want to talk about Shanahan's absence from the NFL Combine because, it has been definitely a debate that's been had over the past week or two. Or not week or two, but like over the past week as we've approached the Combine. And really my main takeaway is I think Shanahan should have attended the NFL Combine. He is the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. Most head coaches show up to the Combine. You get to do formal meetings with players in person. This is your time right now to meet the players, get a first impression, because you only get so many opportunities to meet a player before you draft them. The 49ers do not have a great track record under this regime of drafting in the first round. I think the more information that you can gather on a player is just going to be better, to get a feel for who they are as a person, the vibe that you get from them, being able to physically see them in person. putting a face to the name. So many coaches were asked by Grant himself, and it was a great question. I love that he asked every single coach practically the same question. And Mike, the head coach of your team gave a great answer. It's very important to come to the combine. It's meeting the players. It's evaluating. I think. I mean, maybe there's something going on behind the scenes on why he couldn't come, but it's a bad look. I think it's a bad look. Like, for all I know, he's got family stuff going on. But if this was like a more important thing, like, a dire like let's just say the 49ers were going to be playing this week, he could take time off, or he would take time off, right? My thing is, he should take it a little bit more seriously, because this is a team with a lot of needs. They need to replace their center. They need a brand new left guard, unless they bring Aaron Banks back in free agency, which I don't think they will. They could use an upgrade at right tackle. They need to be looking for the successor to Trent Williams, because he could retire at any minute. They're confident that he's going to come back, but you never know. Things happen, right? The 49ers thought they had a $30 million wide receiver last season until they didn't, right? They need to, I guess, either re-sign Dre Greenlaw, and even if they do, they should draft another linebacker, right? Or at least have one ready. At very least, look at linebackers in the draft to replenish Dre Greenlaw if he's not the same and does not come back ever the same that he was before the Achilles injury. Because we saw one great half of football, or really one great game, but by the end of the game, he was like limping, and then he could not finish the following game that he was in, and they had to shut him down for the rest of the year. I don't know why he rushed back, other than to just prove that he was the same. But I mean, I'm just glad that it didn't seem like he injured himself beyond what he was already injured. But it'll be interesting to see how the 49ers approach the Dre Greenlaw situation. But I guess going back to, Shanahan and the draft, or Shanahan and the combine. Last season, I feel like they should have, Shanahan didn't attend last season. Maybe he would have had a better impression on Cooper DeJean and would have drafted Cooper DeJean over Ricky Pearsall. And it's no disrespect to Ricky Pearsall. Right now, it's a good thing they drafted him, because they're not going to have Deebo, and they're already talking about trading, possibly trading Brandon Ayuk. I just think that showing more passion, showing the players that you care, and showing the fans that you take this seriously is probably the best move. What do you think, Mike? Do you disagree? Do you agree? Is it not that big of a deal that coaches don't attend the combine? Do you find it weird?
I don't think it's that big of a deal, in large part because he's not the only head coach that isn't going. I'm pretty positive that I saw the guy from NFL Network who has like the past 3, or maybe until this year, he had like the past 5 years Super Bowls predicted. What's his name? Schrager. He was saying that a guy who I think is a top 5 head coach in the league, the Rams head coach,
Sean McVay,
he didn't go to the combine. And I think, honestly, like, the only part that I think you're onto something about is, getting to meet players, face to face. I don't know if that goes against, I don't think those are like top 30 visits. I don't know if like there's a specific amount of visits you're allowed to have at the combine. I don't know how that works. As far as having personal meetings, like, does that count against the number? And then the rest number that you have to fly out to, I don't know. I don't know how that works. Because if it does affect how many times you can, you know, have players visit with you, then technically it doesn't matter. But if it's like, yeah, if you go to the combine, you can meet players for free, essentially, then yeah, every coach should be going and doing that, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but as far as like looking at each player and, jotting down the numbers of what they just did, you don't have to be there for that. You know, it's really just the in-person meeting the players. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that is a real plus for the combine, and I don't know how to gauge that even, The only other way that I think, oh yeah, they should go to the combine is really what the Raiders did this year, which is they have a brand new coaching staff. So if anything, they were kind of like bonding by having not only John Spytek, the GM, and of course Pete Carroll, the new head coach. Everybody's new except for our defensive coordinator.
Patrick
But they
Graham.
also brought Patrick Graham. He's the only returning coach, but obviously he hasn't worked with these guys before. They had every single coordinator go along with Pete Carroll and John Spytek. So there were 5 of them. You had McMahon, the special teams coordinator, Chip Kelly, offense coordinator, Graham, defensive coordinator, Pete Carroll, and John Spytek. That was like a group bonding session. That's cool, but you don't have to do that. So, but I don't.
I think
I'm indifferent as far as Shanahan going or not going, in large part because Sean McVay is doing the same thing. If Shanahan was the only head coach not going, then I'd be like, yeah, he looks like a major douchebag right now. But other coaches don't go, so I'm kind of indifferent.
yeah, I guess the common sentiment is that, it just doesn't feel like an efficient use of time. And all right, so Mike, how many teams are there in the NFL?
32.
26 head coaches showed up to the combine.
Mhm.
And 26 provided answers. I guess the 26 that talked to the media provided answers. And they all talked about the importance of showing up to the combine. And really, like, the bottom line is that meeting the players is important. And I think there's something to be said about understanding the human dynamic of the game rather than just X's and O's.
Mhm.
Which time and time again we've seen examples of Shanahan. I mean, he's got tremendous understanding of X's and O's in football. I am not going to, pretend like he doesn't. I know that his players like to play for him. They've been vocal about that, but I've seen so many examples of him ignoring, or I guess neglecting, the human element of the game. And I would like to see him there. You know? I would like to see him, when his player gets shot, go visit him in the hospital. When a player gets injured, don't be buried in your play sheet. Go check on your player. These are
Mhm.
guys that are going to battle for you, and you want to get somebody on board with joining the team. Let them feel welcome, you know, have them want to go to your team. It's not
Yeah.
just a first impression. It's not just a first impression, I guess, like for you meeting the player, it's a player meeting you and wanting to be there. Which, to the 49ers credit, to Shanahan's credit, they've established a culture where the players want to be there. I just know that, in life, all good things eventually come to an end. I hope that the 49ers can keep that together, but I feel like little things like that, it's just it's minor details with Shanahan. I wish he would value minor details a little bit more. Be a little bit more of a sensible kind of, you know, human nature thinking head coach. But he's not. And He doesn't pretend to be. I'll give him that. But I just think that it's important. I think it's important. That's my opinion.
Yeah, like you saying, I wish that he would, go visit the player in the hospital when he gets shot. Get his head out of the play sheet when a player's down on the field injured. Like go check on your guy who goes to battle for you. It's almost like he treats being a head coach like, you know, like a guy treats being the president of the United States.
Yeah, or I would even say he treats being a head coach like somebody who's playing Madden,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And which I mean, he said before that the way that he drafts players or his mindset of the draft, at least in the first round, is you know, he said he would always pick Michael Strahan in the first round, so like he would always just choose the defensive lineman, right? Which for a couple years we know as 49er fans, the 49ers notoriously pick defensive linemen in the first round for so many years. And yeah, I don't know. That has been one of like the things that has come back to bite him is not drafting a quarterback in that first, the first draft that he was with the team. But I'd like to see. I see Papa J's comments, and I would like to get another perspective, which he's providing. I'm going to go with this. Papa J says, as a superintendent of a construction company, I'd rather have my foreman pick out the workers they're going to be working with. If I were Kyle, I would rather have my coaches pick out the players. See, I think the scouts definitely need to do their job and let the coach know which players are going to be, the more athletically advanced players, which ones display high football IQ, high work ethic, high motor, which ones have elite footwork, this, that, and the other. But I do think it's if two players are similar and you've met both players and you like the vibe of one player over another, maybe you go with that player, and it's a minor thing, but I think like I'm a person where I feel like the small things go a long way, you know. And Papa J says I have to disagree. This is a job, and these are grown men that don't need another grown man holding their hand. I mean, we can I can kind of agree on that. They are grown men. It's a business. It's not necessarily like these aren't kids, but I think it has to do with respect. You know, if you give out, give off the vibe that you respect, the players that are coming out to work out, uh, your time, because it is the coach's time. They chose not to be there. You know, all the coaches, I guess it's voluntary to go. You know, if they're willing to give out their time in order to be there to meet the players, I feel like it builds at least a little bit of respect between one another there, But I think we can agree to disagree here. But I do see what you mean about the last part, you know. But I appreciate your perspective on that, Papa J. Fossey says, any way you guys can throw the link out there, I have opinions on the matter. We probably will do a call-in show, eventually. I think for tonight we're gonna probably just stick with Mike and I. But I mean, if you wanna put comments, I love having you tune into the show, pretty regularly, Fossey. So if you want to throw in comments, we also talked about Mike and I are going to set up a Discord that you guys can join, and then we can always chat in there. Uh, but yeah, like I don't want you to think that I'm going to shut the door on ever having anybody call into the show. It's just, it's not something that we planned for tonight, but you know, definitely it'll be something that's probably invited in the future. Maybe if this was Pop Warner, then these players would need a little guidance and a little hoorah, but this is the NFL. Yeah,
I think are we talking about the prospects or players on the Niners here, or just in
we're talking
general
about
with this
both.
conversation?
We're talking
Because
about
like
both.
for the prospects going into the draft, it's very like it's not like the coaches are, guiding them. They're evaluating them. If we're talking about the Niners scouts, it's not like Shanahan's telling them what to do or anything. But as far as the prospects, if they're listening to anybody right now, it's probably their agents, right? They're telling them this is what you should do, this is how you should speak. They're probably being taught like damn near in a class how to speak to these people who are going to pay them millions of dollars, right?
Yep.
Like this is a huge moment in their lives. I don't think the coaches are helping them. They are evaluating them. It's the scout it's the ability for the coaches to work with the scouts, come together at the end of this in May or whatever month and draft the players.
I also think about this too, like, not that I necessarily feel strongly one way or the other, but how do you guys feel about players that are coming into a draft that do not they show up to the combine but they don't participate? How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I mean that would be one where the agent told them, yeah, don't risk it,
Yeah, you could
and
hurt your stock.
yeah, but I know there's a lot of people right now that are saying, what? I mean, we're going to get to combine, standouts, but one guy who didn't do anything at the combine except for talk to teams was Shadur Sanders, and people are saying, yeah, his stock is not as high as it used to be. He's not as close to Cam Ward as we thought, and maybe if he went out there and threw the ball and like was consistently accurate with his passing, we wouldn't be hearing that right now. But because he didn't do anything, he allowed his stock to stay stagnant and other guys separated.
I don't know. I still think it's Cam Ward and Shador as the best quarterbacks in this draft, and I guess
No,
time will tell.
it
But
is still that. It's just the reporting now is, yeah, after this weekend, uh, a lot of insiders didn't realize how separated Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders really are to most NFL teams, which is, yeah, Cam Ward might be the first overall pick. Shadur Sanders might not be a top 5 pick, which for the top 2 quarterbacks in this draft, that's drastic considering we thought they might both be top 3 picks.
yep. Yeah, no, typically in every draft, it's the quarterbacks always go literally at the top of the first round. And it's kind of a mystery on how this will shake out. We don't even know if the first overall pick is going to be a quarterback. And that team is a quarterback needy team.
Right.
There's been mock drafts by, professionals that do this, like Mel Kiper doesn't even have the Titans picking a quarterback first overall. And the Titans have Will Levis and what, Tannehill still? Who? No,
I
not
think
not
I
Tannehill.
think they had the not old, but the previous Steelers backup, the guy that uh, Myles Garrett threw the helmet at.
Oh, Rudolph. Yeah,
Yeah,
Rudolph.
I want to say they
So
had
unless
Mason
he's a
Rudolph.
free agent,
Yeah.
But hold on. There was a question over here from Papa J. With Deebo gone and the production of BA being unsure, do you think that we need to focus a little bit more on the wide receivers? If Juwan Jennings gets hurt, we will be in trouble if Pearsall is all we have left. Yeah, so I definitely think the 49ers are going to be in the market for a free agent wide receiver. The 49ers have already been tied to Devontae Adams. They've been tied to T. Higgins. I think there's, where there's smoke, there's fire. I think they are interested in those players. And honestly, I think they should go all out for Devontae Adams. Unless they're in the
Especially
full
if he's
on, like,
released.
especially if they're in the mindset of trying to run it back with, I guess, without Deebo, but maybe getting Devontae would be an upgrade at wide receiver over what Deebo Samuel is right now. But if they are in the financial reset kind of rebuild rebuild around Brock Purdy. I just see them probably drafting wide receivers and not spending a whole lot of money, because I guess the report from Grant last year was that the front office was very upset with the spending, and John Lynch even said it this year, or said it this past week, where they sort of had the idea of cutting back on spending because they've been one of the highest spending teams in the league, and I do think that they've fallen short on expectations, and right now they have one of the oldest rosters in the league, so they might not be able to afford to run it back with a receiver. That's going to be the biggest puzzle piece that Shanahan, Lynch, and the entire staff is going to have to figure out, is where exactly is this team right now? Because they're old, but they're talented. George Kittle is still playing at, he's the best tight end in football. George Kittle is the best tight end in football right now. I'm sorry, Mike. I know you really like Brock Bowers, but I still think Kittle is a little bit better. That won't always be true. And I understand that. Fred Warner is still one of the best, if not the best, linebacker in football. Nick Bosa is a top 5 edge rusher in football. This team, Trent Williams, even at his old age, is still one of the best tackles in football. What do you do with this roster?
I think there's probably a lot of people who say, well, if we're in this Super Bowl window right now and it's a win now team, why aren't you paying as much money as possible to make it as best as possible? And why are we saying like, oh, we might not be paying as much money because, we've been spending a lot of money recently. That, I think the reasoning behind that is what I was talking about earlier with the dead cap hits too, but the void years. I think those are going to catch up, and they realize that, right? Because if you keep adding these void years, okay, the Raiders do it every year. It's like they have 2 guys that either was a former free agent that sucked and they have to cut him and they have dead cap money, or they added void years to like a big contract like Max Crosby, or I think they did it for Jacoby Myers, Colton Miller, right? You can do it for a couple players, but if you do it for a lot of players multiple years in a row, all of a sudden Deebo's pretty much $9 million. Well, if you also do it for Fred Warner, Kyle Juszczyk, Trent Williams, and this guy and that guy, all of a sudden you have $30 million in void year money that you're spending on having the guy having already played that money's worth 2 years ago. That's not ideal, right?
Yeah.
So if you keep building that, now suddenly you have less money to spend for that year. You can't keep doing that. That's why some teams magically keep pushing it and pushing it. I remember the Falcons for the longest time with the Julio Jones and Matt Ryan era. Like, they were always in cap hell. Right now, the Saints are always in cap hell. And somehow they managed to keep pushing it back. At some point, they have to just bite the bullet. And I think at some time, it could be 5-10 years from now, the Niners are going to have to start biting it.
Yeah. So. It's just, will it be this year? Do you try and go all out because the Super Bowl is going to be at home? You have a last place schedule. Like, look at what the Commanders just did with the last place schedule, right? The 49ers are still, I would say that they have more talented players, but the Commanders are just like a more well-rounded team and have a top 5 quarterback, top 10 quarterback, right? There were, like, you can't even really, like, man, the Commanders just went to the NFC Championship game. Like, can you? They were just the second overall pick the year before, and it can happen quick like that. Like, it happened overnight for the Niners. They drafted really well in 2017. They were horrible in 2018 because Garoppolo got injured. And then 2019, they went from having the second overall pick to go into the Super Bowl, nearly beating the Chiefs and stopping the dynasty before it happened.
Yep.
Man, what? God, I wish we would have won. CG Ruthless says, "What's up, guys? CG, welcome back. I know it's late. What are you doing still up, huh? What are you guys doing still up? Enjoying a great show," says Papa J. Yeah, thank you guys for
Free
tuning
comments.
in. Yeah. Let's see. Fosse, in talking about Shanahan, says, "I think it's not a problem. Kyle's resume speaks for itself. And to me, it's John Lynch's job just to put the best team together for Kyle to work with." See, I agree that should be like a normal dynamic, but that's not the dynamic that we have here. I feel like Shanahan kind of controls everything, you know?
And I would even go as far to say, not to Fosse's negative or to say that he's wrong here. Just I don't think that what this says right here is the normal process of John Lynch should put the best team together for Kyle to work with. I think the normal process should be John Lynch and Kyle should work together to bring the best team together. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say, to the extent in which I agree with is that the general manager should be primarily the team builder, but Mike hit on the best point. They should work together. Because ultimately Kyle Shanahan is going to be coaching the players. John Lynch is just going to be, assembling. They should be in lockstep. They should be working, in tandem.
And that goes, it's not like those are the two, the heads of the beast, but beneath John Lynch are all the scouts, the scouting department. Beneath Kyle Shanahan are all the position coaches and coordinators. Everybody has to be working in lockstep. It's not just the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of part of the reason why, to me, it's like, I don't think it's the biggest deal that Shanahan's not there because you have so many other people involved in the process.
Yeah. Will. I know why Will is up. He was just out returning tapes. You know what I mean? Those tape rentals, man. Fosse says, "Kyle will have his preferences, but to me, seeing players in the combine won't change in real gameplay." Yeah. Like I said, it's a minor detail, but my main gripe is not necessarily with the combine itself, but it's minor details that just kind of accumulate with Shanahan. It's like, could you be a little bit more, I don't want to use sensitive, but just like, don't just be buried in your play sheet, buried in the play calling, the X's and O's. Like, be a human, man. Be a little bit personable, with your players. Or, it's less, I guess it's less about the combine itself and more just about everything that you could add together. It's a culmination of things. Papa J says, with the last name Sanders, I don't think that he needs to do anything. Yeah, he'll get drafted for sure. He's not going undrafted, I'll tell you that. I think Shador goes no later than the second round. I think somebody will take a flyer on him by then.
Oh, I don't think he goes past the 10th pick just because he's a top 2 quarterback in this class.
Well, we thought that about Malik Willis a couple years ago. We thought that about Malik Willis a couple years ago. That and Will Levis, we thought like a couple years ago, was going to be a first round pick. But I mean, the teams just, they'll feel a certain way. And then just look at a couple of years ago, Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback drafted in the first round by the Steelers.
Yeah, I would love the shock value or whatever you of Shedeur Sanders making it to the second round. I just don't expect it because he's a quarterback. So
yeah,
of his caliber.
Papa J says like and subscribe. Yeah, man. Everybody, if you can take time out of your night right now or day, depending on what time you're watching this, to like the stream, subscribe. If you want to leave comments for us, we're taking comments right now. As you can see right here, Papa J's getting all his comments answered. Fosse's getting his comments answered. Will is getting his comments answered. Joel and CG Ruthless. If you want to be a part of the show, give your thoughts. We're here, man. So we also take comments that are not live as well. So we'll respond to comments. Will can vouch for that. I responded to Will's comment like a week ago. So, you know, we definitely appreciate the support that you guys are giving the channel. And let's finish up these comments and move on to our next topic. Fosse says, anyways, who's the Raiders drafting? We will talk soon about the players that stand out, in the combine. We will get back to you. I'm going to actually put a little highlight on that. Papa J says, we got 12 draft picks and enough money built up to build a good offensive line and defensive line. We got the easiest schedule coming up, and the Super Bowl is being played in Santa Clara. The NFL writers are leaning to give the 49ers the Super Bowl. Hey, man, I am not going to lie. Literally, a couple weeks ago, I was thinking, you know what? The 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I was like, you know what? They're going to finally get it done. It's going to happen. It's going to happen this year. They're going to do it at home. What's going to be weird about that, though, is they're going to be wearing white uniforms if they do make it, because I think it's the AFC's turn to pick which uniforms that they want to wear, and everybody always wears their home except for the Buccaneers when they curb stomp the Chiefs. But yeah, man, I had a really good feeling, and then I'm trying to just temper my expectations because I was excited. I'm like, you know what, that last place schedule is going to be a big difference, and the 49ers are going to have momentum, and they're going to be healthier. We'll see. I have to see what they do with the offensive line. I need to see the weapons that they're going to have on offense. McCaffrey's health. They're talking about they think that McCaffrey's going to be ready for training camp. I'm like, well, I think that's like the shit that we had last year where it's, oh, McCaffrey should be good by week 1, with his calf. Obviously it's the PCL, but I get worried about an expensive aging running back who just got an extension, who was just a year ago the heart and soul of the offense. I hope that we didn't just run him into the ground and then we're never going to get anything close to that. But I mean, we'll see. Raiders are going to pick up Sanders, says Papa J. Mike is going to have his quarterback of the future. Wi-Fi says none of that means anything if they can't get through the Eagles, which they can't. Wi-Fi, you are reminding me why I tempered my expectations. Because at the end of the day, the 49ers are going to have to play against the Lions and the Eagles. And potentially the Commanders. Although I guess I would feel less confident against the Eagles because their defense is great and their offensive line is just, I mean, they're monsters. Papa J says, don't the Eagles have a tougher schedule? I'll tell you who's had tougher schedules over the past several years, and that's the Chiefs. They've had tougher schedules, and they just keep coming back to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I definitely think it's one of those things where it's like on paper it's tough, on paper it's easy. I will admit, just by looking at the 49ers opponents next year, it gets me excited. But I don't know. I think that great teams will just continue to be great, and good teams that had down years like the 49ers will bounce back because of the way that the strength of the schedule kind of plays out. Papa J says if the Eagles have a tougher schedule, they might have the worst record, so they might have to go through San Francisco. Just a thought. Yeah, we'll see. It's I mean, they're the reigning Super Bowl champions. Hopefully their hunger is satisfied. You know, similar to the Rams never went back to the Super Bowl after they won that, after they won against the Bengals, right? They were never the same after that. I just think that the Eagles are run very well by Howie Roseman, and I don't see why they wouldn't be ready for the upcoming season. You know, they're not an aging team like the Rams were. And as Wi-Fi says, the Eagles are built to win on the road. They're built to win anywhere. They can just tush push across the field. Did you know that Jalen Hurts likes to have hands on his ass while he plays football? So not only is he putting his hands under the center's ass, but he likes to have hands on his own. Okay? How can you beat a guy like that? You can't. Right, Mike?
It's a lot of ass.
Yeah. Speaking of a lot of ass, we can talk about the Raiders now. No, fucking with you. Isaiah Pola-Mao did get extended, Mike. Tell me about it.
Let me find the contract here. Isaiah Pola-Mao was signed to a 2-year extension, which I want to say, like all things considered, was not necessarily necessary. And not in a bad way. I like Isaiah Pola-Mao, and I think that he is a starter in this league, and I think that, he was ascending at the end of the season. He was a restricted free agent. That's why I say that this 2-year extension wasn't necessary, because they could have just tendered him and most likely got him back, but maybe they didn't want to risk it. Most likely, they just wanted to, get a real deal done, right? When you also have Trevon Merrick and Marcus Epps, and other defensive backs like Nate Hobbs up for free agency, it makes sense to keep whoever you can at the right price. And I think the Raiders feel that they got pull them out at the right price. 2 years, $7.45 million with a $1.5 million bonus, $3 million guaranteed. In 2025, he has a $2 million salary with $500,000 in incentives, $3.59 million cap hit. 2026, $3.27 million salary, $4.36 million cap hit, $750,000 dead money, $3.6 million free if he were to be cut post or pre June 1st. And then he has a signing bonus, $750K in both 2025, 2026, and roster bonuses. So a bunch of stuff in there. Basically, the way that I'm reading this is from Tristan Kuhn on Twitter or X. The 2026 contract, if for whatever reason they felt the need to cut him, he's cuttable in a pre-June 1st sense. So, but I don't think that that's the intention behind the contract. I think the intention is this guy's going to be our starting safety. And at worst, he's our third safety. And he's a damn good third safety to have. So I like it.
Yeah, man. I think Isaiah Pola-Mao definitely, I hate to say surprised because that sounds like disrespectful to the player, but he definitely was one of their stronger players towards the end of the season last year. And so much so that you were like, man, can this guy stop? Can we get this guy off the field so we can stop hurting our draft, draft stock?
He if it weren't for Isaiah Pola-Mao, the Raiders wouldn't have beat the Jaguars. And that's the difference of the 5th and 6th pick, if I'm not mistaken. So, but he was the defensive player of the week that week. I want to say it was week 17, maybe 15, one of the two. But he was the defensive player of the week that game. Yeah, I just think like I said, he's ascending. I think that his best football is ahead of him. So getting him locked in for 2 years, not just 1 year, feels good. In a defensive back room that needs guys under contract right now.
Dude, how big of a compliment is it that, like, any player that's associated with Troy Polamalu, like, it's very well known. Like Talanoa Hufungo, it was like, yeah, he works out with Troy Polamalu, and Isaiah Pola-Mao. It's yeah, he's related to Troy Polamalu. You know, like just the fact that, like, it's a big deal. Hall of Fame safety, and I just find it interesting. Like, I don't think of very many other players. Like, nobody has ever said, "Oh yeah, he trains with Eric Reed, or not Eric Reed, Ed Reed, or he trains with Charles Woodson." It's like never a big deal, but like the minute that you start working out with Troy Polamalu, like I guess like it would be a big deal if somebody was like under the wing of Ronnie Lott, but he's kind of, I'm sure it's happened before, where Ronnie Lott trained players, but I just find it like it's interesting that, like, you don't. I guess the same could be said of like the connection that Tom Brady has to Shador Sanders a little bit, and like the connection that Arch Manning has with Peyton and Eli. But it's one of those things where it's kind of rare. But like the fact, I just find it funny how it's like you cannot mention those two players without mentioning Troy Polamalu. That's just what I find interesting. Doesn't matter how many times it's said. It's like, hey, did you know that he's actually related? Yeah. Papa J said. Papa J puts it best. The Polynesian community is really tight together. Yeah. Yeah, they are.
And another thing about Isaiah Pola-Mao, like you said, he's it's not like it's overly shocking. It's just it's impressive to see him do what he's done, in large part because he was undrafted. He was an undrafted free agent. And he worked his way up the depth chart from being the third, or really like the fifth safety in the room, to making the team his rookie year, and going from being the last string safety, really the emergency guy, to a guy who's deserving of reps, in whatever capacity they could get him on the field. And then, because Marcus Epps went down last season, he became the starter, and he did what he did with it.
Mm-hmm. Wi-Fi says Samoans have a 50+% success rate of getting drafted in the NFL.
Feels like it.
That it probably isn't a true statistic, but I will say some of the best football players I've ever played with and ever played against were Samoans, or some form of Pacific Islander. The last play of football that I ever played, I got kneed in the side of the head by a 300-pound Islander, and that was it for my football career. It was the game right before senior day. So I had played every single game from my freshman year all the way up until senior year. And then, man, I got a concussion, like it just sucked. Like all the hardest hitting players were always Samoans, and then it's funny, like I would talk to my girlfriend's dad, and so Pia's dad would like talk about how he would always play, he would always play football with, like, Samoans at his, after school. It wasn't like, it wasn't like with pads or anything, but it was just like, having fun with friends and whatnot. And so he's like, yeah, the Samoans, they hit so hard, or like, their bones are they have like really dense bones and everything. And, I'm just like, you're telling me there went my career, right? Although I only had one game left. I had no plans of playing in college, but maybe 1 to 2 games, because we could have we could have won that last one and made it to NCS, but you know, uh, let's see. Let's see the other comments here. Wi-Fi says my sister graduated with Vita Villa.
I think
Is
it's
that
Via.
Vita Villa?
Vita Via. I think so. Right. The Buccaneers defensive tackle.
Or Vita Vea? You mean?
Vea, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I was like Vita Vea. Okay. Yeah. No, Vita Vea, tremendous player, one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. Milpitas High School, 2013. So yeah.
The math checks out because he's 30.
Yeah, Papa J says, "What a great segue to the Raiders." Yeah, it felt pretty good to say, right? I definitely had that built up, as you could tell. Like it felt way too natural, felt really good. And I guess I'll just bring this up. Like I'm going to Vegas in May, and I am over here like contemplating on whether or not I want to do the tour for Allegiant Stadium. Because there's part of me that's like, I'm not really a fan of the Raiders. Like I talk about the Raiders all the time, and it's not always talking shit. You know what I mean? But part of me is just like, I feel like I should do it to like, understand the history a little bit more of the Raiders and like go, and it's the team I talk about. Like, but then there's the other part of me that's like, yeah, but there's other things to do, like slot machines.
I've done the tour. I would implore any football fan, like when I was in there doing the tour, I thought I'm going to be surrounded by people in Raider gear. I saw, Seahawks fans, I saw Steelers fans, I saw multiple team fans in there. Not like a whole group of Seahawks fans, but like say it's a boyfriend or girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever it is. It's like one of them's wearing a Packers hat, one's wearing a Ravens hat. It's like, damn, cool. Like NFL fans are just like, yeah, let's check out the stadium because we're here in Vegas because, Vegas, tourists, right? It makes sense. So if you're an NFL fan, it's like, yeah, I'll go check out this new state-of-the-art stadium that, is what stadiums are going to be in the future, it's not all oogling and ogling over the Raiders. It's very much like, look at how nice this place is. And that's what you're going to come away saying is like, dude, that is awesome. And it's not, and again, it's not oogling and ogling over the Raiders. It's, hey, you want to go see a NFL locker room? Let's go. You want to go see where the media members, sit and do press conferences? Let's go. You want to go on the field? You want to walk on the field? Let's do it. That's what you get to do. That's where it's special. It's not just because it's the Raiders. It's because it's one of the top 3 most badass stadiums in the league, and you get to go inside of it all the way. So
pause.
Yeah, and then you come out of it.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of convincing me to do it, because I do.
If you don't do it, I would be let down.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll probably do it. Because I'm like on the fence of like I do want to do it, but like I didn't want it to be like oh, this is my resignation as a 49er fan. I am I'm giving money to the dark side. Like
you can wear Niner gear in there. Like you might get caught in some shit for it, but it's nobody's gonna sit in there and like heckle you. It's more gonna be like the quick little fun, like, all right, boo, but it's fine. What was I gonna say? As far as like, there's a lot of other things to do in Vegas. I'm pretty sure, at least for me, when I went, I knew what time slot I was gonna be doing the tour. So it's like you can plan your day accordingly, and I don't think the tour takes more than 2 hours. It's probably only 1 hour, give or take some extra time, getting there before the tour, right? Yeah. But like, obviously, as a Raider fan, for me, it was like that could have been 3 hours, and I would have been happily there, So
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as long as they're not like, and this was the first, like I don't want like a guided history museum tour of like Raider history, but if I have to
No.
sit, if I have to sit through it to get to the cool shit, I probably will. But no, I mean, I think I would do it just like simply because maybe more than my fandom of the 49ers is probably my fandom of football, probably
Mhm.
the fandom of like the NFL in general.
Yeah.
I love it, like probably everything football, and like with that comes a lot of hate towards some things football, like the way that the game, the direction is kind of going of the game, and like it being less physical and more penalties and stuff. But you
Mm.
know, that just comes from like the passion of like truly enjoying the game. But what were you gonna say, Mike?
I don't know what else I was gonna say, but um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Let's take some comments. Uh, Papa J says, "I got to admit, the outside of the stadium looks badass. Yeah, looks like a
Yeah.
Roomba." Uh, Papa J says, "Yeah, I bet the attitude of Raider fans is not the same as it was in the Coliseum. You're preaching to the choir over here. Mike can tell you the vibe of both. Mike lived to feel the vibe of both. I can't say the same about Candlestick. I never went to Candlestick, unfortunately.
Mhm. Yeah, I
I've
think
been to
there's a lot
Levi's.
of aspects. Right. I think there's a lot of aspects to why Raider games in Vegas are different as far as the attitude of Raider fans and whatnot, and like the overall vibe, if you will. And I think I could take 30 plus minutes on those aspects, but I won't. Um, but I think what it comes down to is, you know, if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan and you have the opportunity based off of your schedule to go to a game at a state of the art stadium in Las Vegas or a game at the widely well known worst stadium in possibly American sports in Oakland, California, which one are you going to choose to go to? Whether or not, it's the same team that you're facing or two completely different teams. Unless one of those teams has Patrick Mahomes or this, Lamar Jackson or, one of those top Josh Allen, right? Somebody who's just like worth the price of admission alone, just to say that you've seen them in person. Um, but if it's the Raiders right now, which Crosby to me is worth price of admission, but if you can choose between seeing them in Vegas at the brand new stadium or Oakland, you're going to choose Vegas every time unless it comes down to price. But then when you talk about price, Oakland fans can afford to go to games because it's not so tough, whereas Vegas fans, it's extremely expensive because it's a brand new stadium and all the seats are resale. So it's upscaled prices. It doesn't matter how good the Raiders are. The tickets are always going to sell because somebody's going to go there because the city is a tourist attraction. It just, yeah. So until the Raiders are winning consistently, you're not going to consistently have Raider fans in there. You're going to consistently have tourists in there, whether they're from Oakland and they just so happen to be Raider fans, or they're from Baltimore, they're from New York, they're from Utah, right? Somebody that just wants to catch a game. That's why it's different because in Oakland it was gritty. It was the black hole and it was the Bay. In Vegas, it's a culmination of Bay Area, Los Angeles, and now Vegas fans, and 50% tourists and opposing fans, if not more than 50% on certain games.
Do you think that modern stadiums and arenas are just a little too corporate? That they
Oh,
kind of
for
like
sure.
focus on the suites, or is it just that the stadiums themselves are not broken into? Like the major fan base will always have all the memories and nostalgia of the old stadium. You know,
Hmm.
even if it was like a shithole. You know what I mean?
I think the Warriors are a good example of like it's probably too corporate, and I think well the Raiders Stadium is tricky because like I said, like I remember when the PSLs got sold out like within a day, and all the tickets again are resale, which makes the prices worse, right? But you know those the suites and stuff that is all very corporate and whatnot. Uh, it's just the pricing, yeah. But I think like the Warriors specifically, like I think okay, my opinion is these sports leagues push the boundary of ticket prices because they can, because they know this is the price that will be paid by somebody, you know. So let's make as much as we can. And the same goes for people reselling the tickets. I bought my season tickets for $500 a game, a seat. I'm going to sell them for at least 650. I could probably get 800 per seat. Well, why not? If you're a diehard Raider fan, the reason why not is to find out whether you're selling it to a Raider fan or not. But does that even matter to somebody today? You know,
I hold very firm that, you know, the Warriors, I think it's argued whether or not they should have moved to San Francisco. San Francisco obviously is the bigger market, and uh, I will say the fan base is you know, the hardcore fan base of the Warriors. It's in Oakland, no doubt. You know what I mean? The best crowds are always going to be the crowds that were in Oracle Arena when, you know, before the Warriors and as the Warriors first started that dynasty. What I will say is the Warriors, and I hold firm to this, they probably chose the best timing out of any team ever to relocate. And they chose the best location to relocate to. You know?
Hmm.
Like if you're going to switch cities, like they literally just went across the bay, right? And
Yeah.
you can travel there. You know, like I always thought the Chase Center was like hard to travel to, and then like, you know, I found out, oh, you can just take Muni there. You can take BART that will take you directly to a Muni station. You don't even have to go. You don't even have to go on the sidewalk. You know, except for when you get off of Muni to go into Chase Center. I went to go see Gabriel Iglesias there recently, but the week before that, I went to go like see what was going on with NBA All Star Weekend out there. It's very convenient to get there still. Not as convenient as it was for Bart because it's like just a couple stops, but damn near as convenient. Um, but like what I will say is like, man, they moved in the middle of a dynasty and they won a ring in the new stadium. Like they can't even say that, oh, like the 49ers have never won at Levi's. You know what I mean? If enough time goes by and that still holds true, it's going to be the curse of Levi Stadium. You know?
Hmm.
Or something like that. Or like if the Raiders, I mean the Raiders not winning a Super Bowl. Definitely, it was a long period of time. In well, actually, they never won in Oakland, huh? They were all in L.A.
76 and 80 were in Oakland. The
Okay,
third was in LA.
okay. So yeah, I mean, you could think about like let's just say 100 years go by, and the Raiders have not won in Vegas. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It might be the curse of Las Vegas, right? Just something to think about. Like there's all the nostalgia with the old stadiums and the championships. The 49ers won those championships when they were playing at Candlestick Park. And then everybody grew up with that team, grew up, you know, well, not me, that was before my time, but the majority of the fan base. And the reason why I'm a fan is because my dad grew up with those people, you know? That all happened before us. And they had those memories that they passed down to us, right? Papa J says, in the Coliseum, I would never wear my Niner stuff. What's the worst that could happen? It's not like somebody will just outright fight you over sports. That never happens.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi says, thoughts on Tom Brady having part ownership of the Raiders? I feel like things will change.
I think things are already changing in a good way.
I agree.
I think, I mean, we'll kind of get onto it, but I think, they wouldn't have had a chance at Stafford. Whether or not they had a real chance is to be debated, but these conversations that they're having with people like Matt Stafford and Ben Johnson, it really sounds like that's only because of Tom Brady. So, that says levels. And then maybe without Tom Brady, maybe somebody like Pete Carroll isn't as interested. I don't know. In fact, I can guarantee Spytech might not be as interested. I say guarantee and might not, but he was very close with Brady. That had to be something, there. And I really believe in Spytech so far. So
yeah, let's switch gears right there then, because you just talked about Tom Brady and how things are changing. Who is going to play quarterback for the Raiders in 2025, Mike? Has there been any rumors? Any thoughts that you have on guys that might be available?
yeah, I don't think this is really about who is definitively going to. It's more of who should be, or what are the best options right now, looking at what is going on in the NFL, who's going to be available. Like, what is the best case scenario for the Raiders this year, in theory? And many things could happen. I mean, we've seen guys like Joe Flacco go out there and nearly take teams on playoff runs out of nowhere, off the couch, So anything can happen.
Dude,
But
Flacco on the Browns, man, he went off and then hit the playoffs and just melted down, dude.
yeah,
That was crazy.
yeah. But there are still a lot of options out there, including drafting a quarterback, obviously signing a veteran, or doing both. It's just how how much are the Raiders willing to spend on that? Both financially and in draft compensation. Are they willing to trade for a quarterback? They were already very much willing to trade for Stafford. You know, um, Trey Lance is a guy that could be looked at if they want a second to third string quarterback. No offense to him, just it would make a lot of it. It actually, we've talked about this. It would
Yeah.
actually not be shocking to me, and I think it would make some level of sense for the Raiders to go for Trey Lance. But my opinion is, if they sign Trey Lance, kiss Aiden O'Connell goodbye, because you can't sign Trey Lance with the assumption that he's going to be the starter. You can't sign Trey Lance with the assumption that Aiden O'Connell is going to be the starter. So somebody else has to start over them. And unless you're picking a quarterback at sixth, like no rookie is going to come in day one and be like, yeah, he's the starter. No, it's going to be, well, either Trey Lance or Aiden O'Connell's the starter day one, which I guess you could do that, but that just feels cheap. Like, they should be signing a guy like if you get Trey Lance, you should have a guy like Russell Wilson, who has a lot of starting experience, then Trey Lance, then a rookie. That's what I would do to maximize my opportunity at quarterback for the Raiders in 2025. That's not the quintessential way to go about it for me. That's just an example, including Trey Lance.
I think, honestly, the direction to go at quarterback for the Raiders is probably to go with Sam Darnold if he is available. I think that he is probably, he just got off a season where he took a Vikings team that really had a weird quarterback competition going into camp, where it was like, why is JJ McCarthy the first round pick, competing with Sam Darnold? Why is Sam Darnold going to start? because McCarthy actually looked really good in the preseason game that he played before, he tore his ACL, right? Sam Darnold won. They went what, 14-3 or 13-4. The Vikings did, in a great division.
I think they had 14 wins.
He just
like 14-3.
Yeah, they were 14-3. Obviously a first round exit because it's still Sam Darnold. I'm not saying Sam Darnold has to be the end all be all, but if you're going to put a respectable team and want to maybe get something out of Brock Bowers this upcoming season and sell tickets, I feel like Sam Darnold, you can sell that to the fan base. You know what I mean?
Mm.
He could be a good bridge quarterback, I feel like. I know Papa J mentioned Trey Lance, but I don't think that the Raiders are going to go in the direction of Trey Lance because, I feel like Lance's career thus far has been a tragedy, and I think right now it's going to take a miracle for him to get his career back on track because what he really needs is an opportunity to play. And I just don't. If they bring in Lance, I could see that being an option. I'm not saying that he will not be the Raiders quarterback, but like Mike said, that will be if the Raiders are going to go the cheap route, and be fully on board with not really competing this year. Trey Lance is currently, it's been the same story. He's inexperienced and, he's kind of a project. Nobody in the NFL so far has committed to the project. Trey Lance needs to go to a team like the Falcons if they get rid of Kirk Cousins to back up Michael Penix. He needs to go to a team like the Eagles. The Eagles would be perfect because if I'm telling you right now, if Kenny Pickett can come in there and get, win a game or two, I think Lance is better than Kenny Pickett. He needs to go to a destination like that, and or to be a backup on the Vikings for JJ McCarthy, because if his leg can't hold up, guess who might come in? A backup quarterback. And I think Lance is better than Nick Mullins if he's even still on the Vikings. And they might have priced themselves out of Sam Darnold. But for all I know, Sam Darnold can stay there. And Kevin O'Connell would be a good coach to pair, because he just displayed reviving Sam Darnold's career. You don't think that he could revive a player that, has hardly even played, that has, we've seen Lance play. It's the inconsistency with him. For the Raiders specifically, I think they need a guy like, I think Flacco's a little old, but, why not? I hate to, I liked Jameis a little bit more before this year as a realistic option for the Raiders to have, because I feel like by now he would have figured it out and not thrown turnovers, but now it's beyond repair, because part of the appeal of Jameis is that he does throw interceptions and he's self-aware of it. And he's like, God, would you please deliver me from throwing these interceptions? I think Jameis right now is more of a brand than a serious football, like a serious Super Bowl contending or playoff contending quarterback. I love Jameis Winston because he's entertaining as hell. I love Jameis Winston, but he's not a serious, he's not going to put the Raiders in a position to be a serious contender. He is going to throw Brock Bowers an insane number of touchdowns, Jacoby Myers an insane number of touchdowns, and also throw a lot of interceptions. They'll lose a lot of games too. Justin Fields would be an interesting candidate for the Raiders, but I feel like if you were going to go the Fields route, they should have gone with it last year. They could have gotten him for cheaper, but maybe Pete Carroll is willing to pull that trigger. And same thing with Spytek. Whereas what's his face, Telesco wasn't.
Yeah, I think a big aspect to that as far as last year was the coordinators, the difference between coordinators this year and last year. Last year it was dipshit from the Bears who came to us and had experience with Justin Fields and chose not to go for him. Chose instead to go for Gardner Minshew, right?
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe Telesco was a part of that. Of like, I don't want to give up a pick for a quarterback. I'd rather just sign a guy, and hopefully we can trade up in the draft and get a guy like Jaden Daniels. That's the rumor, right? Well, no shit, they couldn't get Jaden Daniels. And last season went as it went. I'm forgetting the offensive coordinator's name, but he came from the Bears and he had
Luke Getsy.
Luke Getsy. Thank you. He had previous work with Fields, and again opted not to get him. I just think they had a bad experience together, and they wanted to separate themselves from each other. Like that was probably mutual. Um, Whereas I think with Chip Kelly, I think the big aspect to the question at hand, which is like who theoretically should the Raiders go for? Who should the Raiders make an attempt theoretically at this offseason at quarterback? The answer is somebody that Chip Kelly can succeed with. And I think, well, it's more than that. It's a guy that can win right now with Chip Kelly, who excels with like RPO, right, and a mobile quarterback. Which leads me to Justin Fields.
I
But
got one
I
for you.
think, go ahead.
How about Will Howard?
Right? Yeah.
They could draft him late.
Define late. I mean, I'm the cusp that I have on him right now is like he might be a third to fourth round pick. Fourth round pick would feel pretty good. Third round pick, I mean, it's a quarterback. Like, hey, if it works out and it's not a first round pick, you're gonna feel fantastic.
He knows Chip
Um,
Kelly's offense.
yeah, I mean, chances are it's not going to be the same exact offense from Ohio State, but also chances are if he got him in the building, he would make it a lot easier for him because of previous experience. Um, yeah, from the things I've seen of Will Howard, I would be excited if the Raiders got him in the third, fourth round. I would be excited. Um, and yeah, I'd say so. The answer to this question at hand for me is like I would sign a guy like Justin Fields who can go in there and if all else fails, he can't throw the ball, he can still run with the ball. And I would also draft a guy like a Will Howard, even a Dylan Gabriel, um, or a Jackson Dart, preferably Jackson Dart, if you can get him in the second round or trade up late first round, depending on what the vibe is for him, draft day. Um, Getting a Jackson Dart in there with a guy like Justin Fields, and if you don't want to go or if you can't go the mobile quarterback route in free agency, then to me the next best option, and maybe this technically is the best option, is the game manager who can really win games in a guy like Sam Darnold. The difference between Sam Darnold and Justin Fields to me is the price. Like in theory, if they really want to draft a quarterback and he might be the quarterback of the future, do I want to sign Sam Darnold to a 3+ year deal where he's getting a lot of guarantees to come to our team, and all it turns out to be is another Jimmy Garoppolo, just a little bit younger? Fuck no. Fuck no. I'd rather have Justin Fields for no more than a 2-year deal on somewhat of a prove it type deal where his reasoning for doing this is I want to start. I didn't get that opportunity completely with Pittsburgh. I was starting, I was winning, then I just randomly got benched. I want to start this year. And I think that'd be a big draw to him with the Raiders is I know on that roster right now, I would beat out Aiden O'Connell. So, you know, whereas Sam Darnold, it's, hey, look at what I did last year. If I'm Sam Darnold, it's who's going to fucking pay me? Because I can't guarantee you I'm going to do the same thing as last year on any other team in the league. Because that team was well coached and I had Justin Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
So And that's my fear with Darnold. I think he can be a very good game manager. I was singing his praises last year, but Chip Kelly is not Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell is the coach of the year, right? Maybe Chip Kelly will be really, really good again in the NFL. I can't guarantee that. Um, but I think to add a little pizzazz to the offense, getting a quarterback that can run the RPO, there's an added element, and that can that can add that element that they need to get things going on offense with a guy like Justin Fields. So I think my answer is just you have to sign a guy who can go out there and win you games. Justin Fields, Sam Darnold. There's been rumors about Zach Wilson. I would rather him be a backup, but if you want to put Zach Wilson and Aiden O'Connell in a quarterback battle with a rookie, again, a Jackson Dart, I'm talking about this and I'm under the assumption the Raiders aren't going to draft a quarterback at 6th overall. That's because I really hope that they don't. Because I don't think there's going to be a quarterback sitting there at 6th overall that's worth the pick. I want best player available 6th overall. Second round and on, I'm game for a quarterback. Hence why I want to sign a Sam Darnold or Justin Fields because chances are they're going to be starting games starting in week 1. And I would say part of the reason why we brought this topic up was because of all the Matt Stafford hoopla the past week, half week or so. I was really excited, and I was gaining steam on the Matthew Stafford stuff, in part because at the combine, which like we talked about earlier, Pete Carroll attended. He was asked about like Max Crosby and what's the vibe with Max Crosby and how are things going with him, blah blah blah. Like how's he feeling? Oh, Max Crosby's great. Like he's the epitome of what we want a Raider to be, and he's all in. And I've told him like we're not waiting, we're not restarting this thing. We're going all in. Like we're gonna be. I forget how he exactly coined it, but like we are going to make big moves. We're going to be aggressive. And that was right as there were rumors that, oh, Matthew Stafford has been granted the ability to seek a trade. And I was like, you know what? You know what would really prove to a guy like Max Crosby and the entire NFL that the Raiders are going all in, define all in, but being aggressive this year, it's trading for a 37-year-old quarterback who I believe is a top 7 quarterback in the league. That would have blown me away, and I would have been elated. Granted, if you give up, say, a first-round pick, and obviously you're paying him top dollar, which I'm actually not worried about that. I believe in Stafford. It doesn't matter now, but I would have been elated because I think Stafford was by far, of all the quarterbacks we've talked about, including Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, Stafford's the best quarterback of them all. By far. At least for 2025 and 2026, I think. But again, anything can happen. I mean, Joe Flacco statistically was better than some quarterbacks when he was starting games a year or two ago. So, for all we know, maybe Russell Wilson is the guy that they should go after because he has the experience with Pete Carroll, and he's not the mobile guy that he used to be, but he could still game manage a game and be way cheap. I would think way cheaper than a younger guy in Sam Darnold, who just had the career year of his life.
I would not be opposed, to Russell Wilson, but maybe I just have like glorified lenses of Russell Wilson because he was the boogeyman of the 49ers for a decade. And I think that if I'm going between Russell Wilson on a vet minimum, or like a very cheap contract, or Sam Darnold on like kind of a pricier one, not necessarily top dollar or anything, but like the Baker Mayfield deal, I still would probably just go with Russell Wilson. You know,
Yeah, I
um,
mean, yeah.
I think Russ is a bit washed, but I think
He's also been more consistent.
I still think that there could be something there to at least provide competent quarterback play,
Right.
for a decent price. That I feel like he would give you a good bang for your buck, you know?
Mm.
Like he wouldn't be too
I
expensive and
Yeah.
he wouldn't be horrible.
I can really see, like, I know I did all that talking about Justin Fields. I could really see them actually preferring a game manager because another thing Pete Carroll was talking a lot about was how important he feels the run game is to, his quintessential offense. I think the Raiders, obviously, their focal point needs to be quarterback, but right behind it is going to be offensive line and running back. And I think they're going to find the running backs in the draft multiple. They should sign at least one like veteran and not a guy who was on the roster last year, like a new guy. Uh, whether or not they want him to be the top starter, I don't really know. I don't really care. Like you could go for like a smaller named guy like Kenneth Gainwell from the Eagles, just a random name, right? Like sign a guy who has gone out there produced and draft two young stud running backs, like one at the latest in the third round, who can be your starter day one with juice, right? Shore up the offensive line in whatever way you can so that they can be both great in the pass blocking realm, but also they need to be good at run blocking because I think if I'm reading Pete Carroll correctly, the run game is going to be the focal point of the offense, and that's where I was leading with this. Is that's where it makes sense to me if they go with a game manager quarterback because instead of relying on this ultra awesome quarterback to make all the plays in the world, instead it's as a unit collectively, we're going to be efficient. We're going to run the rock, and all we need is the quarterback to make the throws when he needs to make the throws. That's a game manager.
I feel pretty strongly that the Raiders are going to get Russell Wilson. I feel pretty strongly about that
I can see it.
because you know there's not necessarily an avenue for the Raiders to get a great quarterback, and Russell Wilson is going to be looking for a team, and I think that
Hmm.
he has that strong relationship with Pete Carroll. I could see them both doing each other a solid.
Yep.
I think Russell Wilson doesn't want to be a backup, and I don't think he wants to retire either. So
Right.
the clear cut destination is the Raiders. It I feel like it's going to start picking up steam. And when does free agency start? In like 2 weeks, a week and a
It's
half.
on the 12th, so
So in
just
9 days,
over a week. Yeah.
yeah. So I really think that Russell Wilson might sign day one with the Raiders.
Yeah. Yet I'd say, yeah, because he's a quarterback, I can see that day one, March 12th. I think the first domino that will fall will be Darnold. We'll see where Darnold goes, whoever signs him. And then once he's signed, it's going to be Justin Fields and uh, Russell Wilson. Boom, boom. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so
Papa J says the only good thing about Trey Lance is that he would probably make the rest of your quarterbacks feel better about themselves. Hey man,
possibly.
leave Trey alone. I love Trey Lance. Honestly, I love Trey as a person. I loved watching him play too, but we just didn't get to see a lot of it. And you know,
I'll still agree with you on the sense that he has the physical traits to be a good quarterback. Like he's a good quarterback prospect in the sense of like looking at players in the combine, which we're about to get to. Physically in the arm and everything, and as a mobile quarterback, like he's a solid prospect. It's just he was so raw that it's now year 5 for him or 4, going on 5, I
you're
think.
you know going into year 5.
Yeah, and he's still like, he goes out there in the preseason and he looks like a rookie, pretty much, right? A rookie with, a good arm. So, like, if he could get to a coach, I'd say you're right about him, about he needs to go to the right situation where, he needs to be able to get an opportunity somehow. He might need to actually just get lucky, but also what would be wise for him is to focus on going somewhere where he can really trust the coaching. So if that's the Eagles, if that's the Chiefs, if that's, who would be a really good quarterback, developing team?
The
I guess
Panthers.
I'd say for you, I'd say you might argue the Chargers would be great for him.
Yeah,
But he's not going to ever surpass Justin
Justin
Herbert. But
Herbert.
if Justin
So
Herbert went
that,
down, he would be the number 2 in line.
yeah. Although I don't see that situation being like a Alex Smith Kaepernick one. I think that's Justin Herbert's
No.
job. Not saying that you were
But,
insinuating that because
yeah.
you weren't, but I think Lance needs to go somewhere where there is a clear cut path where he, something happens, he can be the starter and even potentially keep the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll say this.
Or
Like,
just
this
play an extended period of time.
Yeah, he needs to have the opportunity like a Justin Fields did this year. Even though Justin Fields was brought in to like legitimately compete for the starting job, where Trey Lance isn't doing that. It's more of he needs to get lucky in the sense that he randomly gets the opportunity to start games, randomly, aka by injury, because there's no other way he's going to unless he goes to the Tennessee Titans, where all he's going up against is, one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league, or the worst technically. In Levis, and let's just say that they don't go with a quarterback first overall, and in the second round they go Jackson Dart. Then it's like a 3-way race, and Will Levis is already losing.
He's got to be careful though too, because one of those places might just be a career suicide place for him.
Right.
You know what I
That's
mean?
why.
Like
That's why
imagine he
somewhere with
goes.
good coaching.
Imagine if he goes to the New York Giants, then he might actually be given an opportunity, and then it's over.
You just said New York Giants. I'd say it's exactly the same for the Jets. But somehow I could actually see the avenue for him to start for the Jets.
Yeah.
I could see it.
I think it needs to be like the Falcons, whereas the Falcons proved they can be fully invested in a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they want multiple solid options, right?
Mm.
They have weapons to throw to. They have, say what you want about Kyle Pitts, but Drake London and what's
ex-Bears receiver?
Yeah, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod played well,
and Bijan.
And Bijan. That's a good situation.
Yeah.
And
a guy
if
behind a guy who's not proven yet. He looks
Penix
good.
isn't proven.
But yes.
And if they cut ties with Kirk Cousins, let's just say Penix is bad. Trey could step in and be good. Or be better.
That could be very similar to what happened with the Panthers last year, where out of nowhere, week 3, they're starting, what's his name, the Red Rifle, over the ex-first overall pick.
Yeah. Oh my God, Bryce Young's career was dead in the water. It was like, oh man, this was never going to work. He's undersized, all this, and then he started balling out. Bryce Young actually looked, pretty good by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't Trey Lance want to go there? Like, I get it. He's going to be behind Bryce Young, but like Bryce Young is kind of an undersized quarterback, and quarterbacks get hurt all the time. They get hurt more nowadays than they did before when they could actually get hit. Funny enough, or at least it feels that way. And Lance is bigger. Like just imagine how Panthers fans would feel if something happens to Bryce Young and then Trey Lance goes in there, Dave Canales being the quarterback whisperer, like all of a sudden you have like this, what is Lance, like 6'4", something, like, just this monster who can also run the football and is exciting to watch. Well, as long as he's progressing. Like what we've seen from him is the longer that he plays, the better he looks. Towards the end of games, he's looked better.
He sells in.
But it's the inconsistency. But you can't really blame him. It's like he's hasn't had the best situation, and
Yeah.
it's really been. I've never seen anything like this. This has been like one of the biggest tragedies I've ever seen of like a professional sports career.
When you yeah.
Of
Last
like
thing I'll
a
say.
player that got drafted, like that was drafted so highly with
Right.
so much stock put into him,
Mhm.
and then for that team to never commit to him, and then he just never really gets the opportunity because by the time he did, he got injured.
Right. That to me is the tragic part, is that he got injured when he did get his shot. You know,
Yeah.
but he was a raw prospect, and the team. I think what the other tragic aspect about it is that the team drafted him where they did, and because of where they drafted him in this league, the expectations are exponential. You know, and it's not fair to a guy who literally has only played like 600 snaps of quarterback leading up to that. It's just like that's not unheard of. Maybe it was less. I don't know. But last thing I'll say about Lance on this Raiders topic is that he will finally get to choose his landing spot, right? So
Yep.
that's good for him. He'll have to make that work. And then what I will say lastly on the Raiders, um, and sort of in a Lance sense too, but I don't really expect this for Lance. Like I remember last year when the Vikings signed Sam Darnold. I know I was sitting there like once they signed him and I saw like the amount of money, it was like $10 million or whatever it was. I was like, yeah, there's a good shot he's gonna be the starter this year, unless they trade up in the draft because they were sitting there at like the eighth, ninth pick or whatever. Um, they're not getting like a top three quarterback in this class. Like they'd have to trade up and try to get lucky to get a guy like Drake May. But I knew they weren't getting like a Jaden Daniels or obviously Caleb Williams. So they're like looking at the fourth best quarterback in the class at best and Sam Darnold, right? Um, and maybe even likely, but no, actually no, because Sam Darnold was doing so good. I would say no, this wouldn't happen. But I was going to say maybe JJ McCarthy would have beaten him out. Maybe JJ McCarthy would have by week 4 started games for the Vikings and overtook Sam Darnold. But I think Darnold was playing so good that wouldn't have happened. And I guess my whole point to this was just when the Vikings signed Sam Darnold, it was like the guy that you might be forced to start games, which they were. You're going with the guy who was terrible with the Jets, terrible with the Panthers, went and been a backup for the Niners, and when he played was terrible. You're banking on this guy to win you games early in the season, and you want to win games? Good luck. They win 14 fucking games with that guy. Anything can happen, right? And that's what I started with on this.
Yeah.
The rumor, which I already alluded to, but the rumor is that well, there's many rumors. I know I've seen one rumor where it's like the Raiders will look into Russell Wilson and Sam Darnold this offseason. Okay. There was one. I swear somebody reported. I wish I had like a tweet to show and like prove my point here, or like fact check, whatever. I want to say one report was like, if Stafford doesn't work out for the Raiders, which it didn't, another name that's been getting a lot of rumbles. Why do I feel like this was Vinny Bonsignore? Is Zach Wilson. If anybody is last year's Sam Darnold to a T, it's Zach Wilson because he's been nothing but shit. He's been on multiple teams, nothing but shit, and then he just goes to a team. And it's like, yeah, he might start for them. He's not going to win 14 games, but could he fit Chip Kelly's offense with the RPO style? And maybe he's grown up a little bit since his last time starting a game. Maybe anything could happen.
If they got Zach Wilson, Mike, would you buy the T-shirt? Zach Wilson throwing bombs and banging moms.
Yeah, or yeah, something having to do with MILFs. I don't think I would, but if he won me 12 games, I would. I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
I would. Oh yeah. Yeah. So
What about Cooper Rush?
Cooper Rush, I mean, if the Raiders you know, are busy talking to like defensive backs and running backs and every other position not named a quarterback on March 12th and 13th, then I would say Cooper Rush would be a guy that, I go for to be the possible starter. I want to say he's like north of 32 years old. Now, granted, I've watched him game manage games for the Cowboys in the past and like win games. Not like Cooper Rush won that game, but just Cooper Rush game managed that game well enough for the Cowboys to win that game. You know? So like if they, again, I said this about Trey Lance, if the Raiders want to go a cheap route, Cooper Rush is very much in the vicinity of like, all right, I understand it. It's just, I don't want to see them sign Cooper Rush when Russell Wilson or Justin Fields or even a Zach Wilson is available. And that might be crazy to say on the Zach Wilson aspect because Cooper Rush has been better when put into starting positions, but also maybe Cooper Rush was surrounded by better talent and had better defenses and everything, better coaching. So
I think if it doesn't work out for Cooper Rush as a quarterback in the NFL, I do think that he has. I do think he has being a 49er cheerleader or cheer squad captain. I think he would fit in. The 49ers cheerleaders, they're called the Gold Rush. He would be Cooper Rush. And also, he's already got the look. You know what I mean? Like he literally kind of looks like Sourdough Sam. Okay?
Yeah.
Look, this is Cooper Rush right here. For those of you who don't know what Cooper Rush looks like, but I'm assuming all of you do. That's Cooper Rush. And then over here, that's the 49ers mascot right there. So you just put him in some Niner gear, and then he never has to play quarterback and be very middle of the pack anymore or below average.
Maybe Cooper Rush could be a good number 2 for the Niners.
Yeah. Honestly, like I'm obviously kidding and just like basing that off his looks, but I think Cooper Rush would be decent. I could see him starting games for the Raiders, but like if I had to give Cooper Rush like a rating, I'd say he's a 6, no higher than a 7 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd say he's about a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I would even go as far to say 5, but with optimism that he can game manage games. Yeah.
Sam Darnold would be no. I got that one. Oh no, I didn't. Sam Darnold would be excellent with Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see it. I think Sam Darnold. The interesting thing about Sam Darnold to me is that he's still at like peak quarterback age, like turning 28 soon, I think. And a guy like Justin Fields is still 25. Like, if either one of those guys you sign them and they win you 10 plus games, like you might be looking at. I shouldn't compare them to this guy, but let's just say it's best case scenario. Justin Fields or Sam Darnold works out, and it's like, I guess the easier guy to compare to would be Geno Smith. But like right now, like the best case scenario is Baker Mayfield. Of like you sign him in free agency, you're not really expecting much, and he goes out there and he's consistent and he wins games. And it's just like, why would we force ourselves to draft a quarterback? Key in on force. Like you should always be open to drafting a quarterback, but don't force it like you need it if you have a guy like Baker Mayfield winning you games. Focus on building the team around the quarterback, which Spytek and Carroll have talked about doing. If you can sign a guy like a Sam Darnold, who I agree could be excellent with Pete Carroll. That would be ideal for this team.
Papa J says, I was kidding about Trey Lance. Yeah, it should be known there are 3 names that you do not bring up on this live stream because we will talk to no end about these names. Mike, I want to know if you know the 3 names that I'm thinking of. Trey Lance is one of them, so I want to know if you know the other 2 of who we just once they're brought up, we just talk forever. So Trey Lance.
I'm gonna say Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
We have never even we maybe have mentioned Donald Trump like once on this podcast. Right. We don't talk about politics here. Well, not ones that don't necessarily pertain to sports, really.
Right. 3 names. Is one of them Derek Carr?
No.
Okay. Is it Josh McDaniels?
No, you were close.
Okay. How many Raiders?
None. Jesus. They're both Chargers.
Oh, Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, Justin Herbert. That's been pretty recent. The most notorious are Trey Lance and Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once we start talking about, oh man, no, what was it? You made me look like a jackass last week, or on the last podcast, huh? At the beginning, when I was talking about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Oh, like predictions for the Super Bowl, or?
Yeah, but I was literally thinking in my mind, like, did you make me look like a jackass before the Chargers and like, because I predicted the Chargers were going to beat the whoever they played in the playoffs. The Texans. And then like freaking Justin Herbert just went out and shit the bed.
Yeah.
That could have been another moment where you made me look like a freaking dumbass. But
right. I wasn't gonna do it the whole playoffs. It was just that Super Bowl. I just rewatched our pod and I was like, yeah. I was just on it.
But yeah, Papa J, I'd say Trey Lance and Jim Harbaugh are the 2 people that Mike and I had, like, once we start, we just can't we can't stop.
Yeah. And JD Vance.
Jesus. Trey Lance needs to go to the Canadian League or the European League, says Papa J. Honestly, like, I could see it where if it helps him become a better player and then he makes a comeback later on, that might be the route that he needs to take, because his career is kind of like, I mean, I don't want to say it's unprecedented, but like, because a lot of quarterbacks get drafted or like, go undrafted and then they kind of become backups for like very long and then they don't see the field a lot. But I think like if he can iron out the kinks and, get into a groove, that would only help if he starts to look good,
Yeah. Last thing on Trey Lance for me, I think he and Daniel Jones are in the exact same boat right now, where I think a lot of people look at them as like 3rd string quarterbacks, guys who were drafted high and have just, kind of shat the bed for whatever reasons in their career. The only difference is Daniel Jones, whether you want to call it earned or whatever, got a big contract from the Giants, whereas, Trey Lance didn't. But I'm just saying they are similar right now in the sense that they are looked at as 3rd string quarterbacks in this league right now. And I think they're both mid to low end 2nd string quarterbacks, in my opinion. But the difference to them, I'd say, is Trey Lance is still to a degree, one way or another, a project. Whereas I think Daniel Jones is just a guy who needs to get it together. Like as far as consistency, you know.
Yeah, I still think that Lance is still very moldable. You know,
Mm.
I don't think he's a lost cause. Whereas Daniel Jones, you have a big enough sample size to where maybe not a lost cause, like maybe the right situation, you know, but like you have seen a lot of Daniel Jones. You haven't seen a lot of Trey Lance. So
Right.
I don't know.
I
It's
guess like who would you rather have as your number 2 quarterback, Daniel Jones or Mac Jones?
Papa J asked about Mac Jones, so perfect time to
Nice.
talk about him. I think honestly, I've never been a big fan of Daniel Jones. I do like his running ability, but God, he is such oh, he's a turd sandwich.
Mm.
He's a turd sandwich, dude. Like
Yeah.
he just can't get out of his own way. I would almost rather have Mac Jones. I think just simply because I feel like Matt Jones could have like a little bit of like a Matt Ryan in him, and Daniel.
He's got game manager in him to a degree.
Yeah, I think in the right circumstance, Mac Jones could you know could work well.
Right.
I think I told you I liked what I saw, or I liked what I saw more from Mac Jones's pro day than Lance's, and
Mm.
ultimately like I fell in love with Lance after after the Niners had drafted him, and just kind of the person that he is. But and I hate Mac Jones, really. Like he's a dirty player, what like going on the ground and like trying to twist somebody's ankle. I think he did twist somebody's ankle, and
Right.
other shit like that. Like I'd rather have neither is the correct answer, but uh Mac Jones I feel like could still be,
Mac Jones,
if he's accurate and knows an offense, you got
right.
something.
I think Mac Jones could be in that vicinity of like the secret Sam Darnold of this year, compared to last year's Sam Darnold going to the Vikings, of just like that was out of nowhere. I could see it for Mac Jones just very faintly. Um like that'd be like, man, that would be a really weak signing if it were like, yeah, right now on paper as of March 13th, the Raiders starting quarterback is probably Mac Jones, their new free agent acquisition. Everybody would be up in arms like, here we go again, I guess. Well, we better pick a quarterback at 6th overall. And then they don't, and they wait until the second or third round. It's going to be like, oh no, we suck again. We haven't even played a game, you know? Uh, which leads me to, I think Mac Jones makes more sense for a team that was heavily linked to him when they drafted Trey Lance, the Niners, you know?
Yep.
So, I don't know. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I would definitely I would take Mac Jones as a backup quarterback. Although he can't run like Purdy can, so it's going to be a big difference. I would take Zach Wilson as a backup quarterback for the Niners, honestly. I would.
He actually, like, if somebody in the league matches up with Purdy's like physical traits the most, it might be Zach Wilson.
Yeah, and I actually think he probably has a better arm. It's just Purdy has
Right.
a much better understanding of like, where receivers are going to be, higher football IQ, I'd say.
Yeah. But I think that's why I kind
Mm.
of like him for the Raiders in the sense that he could be this year's Sam Darnold of didn't expect that shit to happen. He goes to a team, he starts a couple games, he wins games, and it's like, well, we can't bench him yet. And he shockingly succeeds. I mean, he was a second overall pick for a reason, right? If he just goes to a place with good coaching, hopefully, and fits the offense, hopefully, in Chip Kelly, you never know.
I feel like Zach Wilson is like anti Purdy a little bit. Like they're kind of very similar quarterbacks, like
Hmm.
physically,
There's
But
Christian Purdy and then there's Mormon Purdy.
yeah, like, but the thing is like Zach Wilson is a little bit more of a, kind of acts out. Like Purdy's like the aw shucks, I'm trying to do my part, and then Zach Wilson is like, fucking his best friend's mom allegedly,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna make whoever steps in here's life a living hell, and then Aaron Rodgers ended up going to the Jets, like, I don't know, Zach Wilson. I mean, maybe he should get a little bit more credit for what he did with the Jets when Rodgers was injured, because Rodgers came back and then Jets were worse.
Yeah.
Then again, they didn't have Saleh. Maybe Zach Wilson likes Robert Saleh, even though he got outed by him, kind of.
Yeah.
Papa J said, I thought Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson did not get along. Maybe
From what I
towards the end,
understand,
but
yeah,
it's
I
probably
think from
water
what I
under the
understand
bridge.
of that is exactly, like water in the bridge. Like towards the end, things got kind of more, maybe stale is the right word. And, obviously things ended via trade to the Broncos and stuff. But since then, they've made good on each other or whatever you want to call it. So I think, people have talked about that and just they could see them reuniting again.
Yeah. If Pete Carroll brings back Russell Wilson, then Jim Harbaugh should bring back Kaepernick. That would be great.
Good call.
Papa J
Good
says,
call.
I would love to see Kaepernick back. Yeah, Kaepernick's probably on my list of players that I could probably talk about for a lot, but tonight's not the night for that. I do love Kaepernick though. Papa J said Trey is the victim of having great undeveloped talent. Unfortunately, in the NFL, you can't really develop a quarterback like him. It's too late.
In today's NFL, yeah.
Trey needs to go to the Canadian League for a couple years and then come back like Doug Flutie did. Yeah, I mean, whatever will get him from point A to point B being more, a developed quarterback, and then point A being an undeveloped quarterback, And so far, it's been such a bumpy journey, and I could not imagine the frustration that he probably has.
Yeah. Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
What's our next topic?
Our next topic, and our final topic of the day, is who stood out in the NFL Combine this week, Mike. I'm going to defer to you because you're sort of our prospect expert here. I mean, look at you, man. You're a Raider fan. Like, you guys are drafting high every single year. Of course, the draft means,
Yeah,
it means a lot
it's
to
my
you,
Super Bowl.
It is.
This is my Super Bowl. Okay, I'm just
Who
gonna
stood
go
out?
by. Yeah, I'm gonna go by position of guys who stood out positively. I'm not gonna go any negatives here. And really, this will be quick. I'm just gonna give their names. And when we get closer to the draft, I'll have more on these guys, and hopefully, like last year, somewhat of a rankings sort of vibe, So we'll see how it goes. For quarterbacks, the best quarterback as far as throwing the ball and consistently being accurate was Jackson Dart. He was throwing some fucking beautiful passes, deep passes at the combine. And once again, we talked about guys who didn't throw and maybe that hurt them. Well, Jackson Dart did throw and it helped him, I think. Tyler Show from Louisville, and then Quinn Ewers from Texas. They looked good. At wide receiver, Matthew Golden from Texas. This dude seems like he's just been getting more and more hype, and he's been kind of climbing the boards. He's like a speedy slot receiver from Texas. This dude's pretty shifty, very fast. And the gist that I've gotten just seeing tweets and stuff is like this guy's probably going to go earlier than you think. Um, and maybe people think he goes around like say the 30th overall pick right now. Like he might go around like 15 to 20. We'll see. Um, Jalen Noel from Iowa State is a physical freak, and then Jaden Higgins, also from Iowa State, is like think of like a Nico Collins, type receiver. Just very reliable, but also still physically gifted. You know, it's not like he's just like, oh, he's just a sure-handed guy. It's like, no, he's stud. So those are the three wide receivers. A running back, I got five guys. Omari and Hampton from North Carolina. I think he's kind of the bona fide number 2 running back in the draft right now, behind Gianti. Quinshawn Judkins from Ohio State. I think if there's a guy that the Raiders are like most likely to draft right now, it's Quinshawn Judkins, not Quinshawn. Quinshawn Junk. Damn it. Damn it.
Fuck. Maybe you better hope that the Raiders don't draft this guy so you don't have to say his name long term.
I'd much prefer that they draft the next guy on my list, Trevion Henderson.
You know what? Quinshawn Judkins.
Yep, nice.
Okay, the Raiders are going to draft him because I don't know why the Raiders have the most, or the Raiders the past couple years have had the most Key and Peele named roster in football.
Wait till you hear my next two names.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, Quinshawn Judkins and Trevion Henderson, both from Ohio State, both having just won the national championship, playing, running back under Chip Kelly. There's quite the connection there for both these guys. Judkins is more of the he could be a 3-down back, kind of bruising guy, but still speedy, I guess you could call him like the all-around type guy. Whereas Trevion Henderson is the very speedy guy. And essentially, I guess the way that I look at them, in part because they're coming out of college and, they're going to be rookies, and I don't know how good they're going to be. I look at these two as like the poor man's David Montgomery and
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Especially poor man's Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, I'm not expecting a Jahmyr Gibbs here, but I could see a David Montgomery here, specifically Judkins. So, it's kind of like the pick your poison sort of vibe here. If they could somehow get both, that's cool, but also from what I'm hearing about these guys, like you might be spending a second or third round pick on both of them. So,
One thing I will say is I don't know why, but in my gut, I could feel that Judkins was the David Montgomery in your comparison because, I don't know, I feel like you can't be a speed back named Judkins,
Right. Yeah, and then Trevion Henderson. Oh, he's a speedy guy for sure.
Oh my God, dude, the second coming of Ricky Henderson,
Yeah. It's like William Perry, clearly not a fast guy. He's huge. Let's call him the fridge.
Yeah.
Okay, so now then, you might have heard or even seen this guy. Cam Scatabo.
Oh yeah. Do you think I've heard of him.
Okay, so I was going to say
he's the next Niner fullback.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. He's not a speedy guy. He is he's like essentially what we're hoping for here is the next coming of Peyton Hillis's Linsanity run, but for 6 years straight of that Linsanity run and not just 1 year, We're hoping for the next Peyton Hillis. Christian McCaffrey, but on roids and probably not nearly as definitely not nearly as agile.
So but would you compare him to Mike Allstott?
No, he's not running through people like that. It's just he's not that old school gigantic fullback who probably could have played who maybe should have played tight end, and if they bulked up even more, they could have just played guard, like not like that guy. It was more of just or Scatabo is just more of a what would be a comparison for him? Like a this is a really old callback, like a Brandon Jacobs from the Giants back in the day. I
Okay.
don't know if you know who that is, but
My mind kind of went. I mean, before that, like just a little bit based on the description, I was thinking maybe like a Bruce Miller.
former Niner, right?
Yeah, he's the one who allegedly punched the old guy.
Okay. Was that under Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah,
Yeah, all the shitheads. No offense to Jim Harbaugh. I think this was more of a the GM thing. For some reason, that Niner team, those Niners teams, they had some fucking shitheads on their team. So when
not
that
all of
team
them.
just imploded, it was like, all right, Patrick Willis retires. This is so going off topic for a second. Patrick Willis retires. That young linebacker that only played like 1 year, who was a
Chris
stud,
Borland.
Chris Borland, retires because he's worried about brain injuries. This guy retires. Blah blah blah. It was also like three other guys like getting suspended or kicked out of the league. It felt like it was just like, yeah, we got to get rid of them too. The team just
Alden
fucking
Smith.
imploded. Yeah, Alden Smith, probably that guy you were just talking about. And I remember you guys had like a defensive tackle. I swear that dude was getting into hella trouble. I don't remember his name. He was like kind of solid too, but like more of like a rotational guy.
I'm trying to remember.
I don't know. I could find out. I could look later and maybe find it. But so Cam Scatabo,
Sounds familiar.
yeah, he had a good combine, and he's already been like getting hype and stuff. He's just an interesting guy, and I say he's the next Peyton Hillis because he's white, and it's just like, or like you said, McCaffrey. It's just like, all right, let's see how it goes with this one. But it's
He's
so
gonna
far,
join.
it
He's
looks
gonna
pretty
be on the
good.
Eagles, man.
Or the Patriots, knowing them.
He's gonna be on the
Um,
Eagles, and they're gonna say, "Hey, man, can you play corner?"
yeah. Um, but you want to talk about players with hilarious names that the Raiders should draft? Bashul Tuten. Tuten. I'm not even trying to make fun of his name. It's just because on the topic of having a crazy different name. Bashul Tuten
Okay.
from Virginia Tech. That dude is electric. The great combine.
Okay.
On the offensive line, Will Campbell. People were talking negatively about him because of his arm length, which leads people to think like, oh, should he be a guard? I
Does he
don't
have
know,
short
man.
arms?
Apparently, he has short arms.
I don't like it. I don't like it for a tackle.
Right.
Because you need to
If
be
Max
able to.
Crosby, yeah, if Max Crosby's going up against you, he's gonna have leverage.
Yeah,
That's
he's
the
gonna get
reason,
his ass kicked every single play.
right? You know
I
what's crazy
I
though?
have I have lived that. Not getting my ass kicked every single play, but like my entire 4 years of high school football. But when I was a senior, we played against Castro Valley High, and there was this one player who had much longer arms than me. He wore number 69 on Castro Valley High, and I could not get my hands on him.
Hmm.
And dude, I was getting thrown around that game.
Yeah.
It was it was the worst game of my career.
Yeah.
There's this one play, dude. He looked like he was roided out. He was like freaking at least 6'5". He was like at least 6'4", right?
Yeah.
And then there's this one play. It was we were kicking a field goal, and so I'm on the field goal unit as well, playing right guard. And then, dude, you just see him pick me up and throw me on my ass.
Oh,
Like, I mean, hey, we made the field goal, but dude, I got my ass kicked that day, and it sucked ass because there's nothing like I would try and like lunge at him, throw my body in there, and he would just freaking, you know, uh, he would use my momentum against me, like freaking grab the back of my shoulder pads. It was like I could
yeah.
not do shit. It was
Hmm.
either Like he was pretty good. I'll give him credit. You know,
Mm.
it's players like that you just think about, and I just think, man, Max Crosby would eat him alive because
Yeah.
that imagine like a Max Crosby type player.
Yeah.
That's who I was kind of up against.
Yeah. The thing with Will Campbell, at least for me, looking at it from a Raiders standpoint, I've seen people ranking him as like the fifth best prospect in this draft. I've seen people ranking him as the sixth, seventh best prospect in this draft. If he can't play tackle, I know a lot of people don't like drafting a guard at like sixth overall, which I think a team did a couple years ago in Quentin Nelson with the Colts. And he was like bona fide, like he might be the best prospect in this draft, if not the second best, Quentin Nelson. Um, and they just let him fall to them at six. And like his rookie year, maybe his first 2 years, it was like, whoa, this guy is insanely good. And I think he might have had like a slight like decline, but he's good. He's really good. Um, Other than that, you don't see guards going top 10. Personally, at least my feeling right now, and that could change. If Will Campbell went to the Raiders at sixth overall, I'd be elated because if they can try him at tackle, he could also be like emergency situation, in break glass in case of emergency if Colton Miller or the right tackle goes down, slide him in, right? He's a top prospect on an offensive line, but we need to shore up the guard positions. Um, and in doing so, that gives that that allows us to really put the best offensive line forward because then Jackson Powers Johnson is where he should be, which is center, right? So if you can try Will Campbell at say right tackle, and if it doesn't work, then slide him to wherever he should be, left or right guard. Then you have either uh, Dylan Parham or you resign. Regardless, we have Parham, and you resign. Of course, I'm forgetting his name. Hold on. Hold on. Come on. Jordan Meredith. So sorry. You re-sign him. Like, you got the tackles already figured out. You got the center figured out. Now you got a guard who's just like day one starter. And then you just have a battle between Meredith and Parham at right guard. I feel good about that. You know? And again, if he could work at tackle, you might even have your left tackle of the future. Boom. So anyways, but if he can't play tackle, then it's like, but hopefully he'll still be a great guard in theory.
How did that one prospect, look? I think his name was Membu or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's the next guy on my list. Basically, the gist on him is, yeah, he had a great combine. He might have just locked himself into like a top 15 pick. And some people are saying actually because Campbell had the short arm measurements, otherwise having a good, otherwise Campbell had a good combine. I even sent. I don't think I sent it. Oh, I retweeted it. That's what, or I quote tweeted it. Let me find it. I'll even send it to the, channel. From the 33rd team, sending it to the channel right now on Twitter.
Okay.
But this is to me why I got excited about Will Campbell this combine weekend, is because of the stat that is put up right here. Will Campbell's second time of 4.98 put him on a short list of athletic offensive line prospects. Offensive linemen at the combine since 2010 record a sub 5.0, 40, and 30-plus inch broad jump at 315 pounds plus. Will Campbell, Tristan Wirfs, Trent Williams. Those are the best names I think you could possibly bring up right now. Right? It's just, oh, his arms are short. Well, if he's one of the most agile offensive tackle prospects at his weight, like, man, that works for me. That might work for Spytech, who was there to draft Tristan Wirfs.
Tristan Wirfs, yeah, good
And
point.
I want to say, Chip Kelly's offense relies on more athletic offensive linemen. If that's the case, like, it would make sense to me that they go for a guy like this. And worst comes to worst, your guard situation is solved. And then, like you said, the next name on the list is Armand Melbourne, or oh shit. Hold, no, I think it is Membu. It auto corrected me. Fucking A. From Missouri. Hopefully it's the same guy.
Let me
yeah,
double check.
Let's look him up. But because of the short arm,
Armand Membu from Missouri.
Cool. It auto corrected me to Melbourne. Thanks, Apple. Because of the short arms measurement for Campbell, some people are saying, well, now Membu is the number one tackle prospect in this draft. We'll see how it goes. We got still months to go from there, but we'll get our answer when the draft comes. How teams feel about them.
I'm just thinking about, like, would you have caught that? If I didn't ask you about Membu.
Oh, I probably would have called him Melbourne for sure.
Yeah.
And then mental errors, dude. I trusted myself here.
We would have somebody in the comments, like, or just somebody
check
watching,
your sources.
Like, no, not check your sources, but we would just have, like, man, who the fuck is Melbourne? I watched the entire combine. Who are these guys talking about? Or just like, man, are they talking about man, these guys are white. Melbourne? What the hell?
Yeah.
Where'd they get Melbourne?
Melbourne, yeah. What was the thing the guy said to you about the special teams coordinator? Get your back straight before you report it.
No, you guys should do your research before you do a podcast on something.
That's why I said, that's what I meant when I said check your sources. Obviously, I don't have any fucking sources. Okay, next name. Not only because he had a good combine, but this was a guy to me that was like one of the clear cut, like, man, I am noticing him this entire week of the Senior Bowl, was Gray Zabel. Let me make sure I got his last name right, actually. I'm pretty sure that's his name. Gray, let's type it. Gray Zabel. Yes. Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. At the Senior Bowl, he was playing every position on the line. He was playing every position, and he was in the one-on-ones. He was stopping defensive linemen. And obviously, you're not going to get one-on-ones just in the NFL, but it's good to know that he can do that. Yeah. There's a lot more to playing an offensive line spot than just the one-on-one guy in front of you. There are stunts. There's this. There's that. Right. But he's kind of aced everything so far, and I think he's gone from being like, yeah, he might be a third-round pick to, like, he's going to be a first-round pick this year. Or at least he should be. If a team like the Raiders are lucky enough to have him fall to the early second round like Jackson Powers Johnson did last year, I'd be elated to do it again this year. Just like Jackson Powers Johnson last year. Get Zabel, again, guard spot. We're probably good there. And if somebody goes down at tackle, he might be able to just slide right in. So this is a guy who's definitely got me pretty excited. And then Joshua Gray from Oregon State. Good combine. Linebacker, Jahad Campbell was a guy that was just kind of flying around from Alabama. And that was day one of the combine, and that was kind of like the start of the day, if you will. Jeffrey Bossa from Oregon, another guy that I noticed at the Senior Bowl. And, like, even at the combine, they were saying, like, yeah, like, Bossa was the leader of Oregon, and even the week at the Senior Bowl, he quickly became the leader of, I don't know if he was on the what is it, North and South, or national and American. Let's say he was on the national team. He
Yeah.
within that week became the leader of the national team's defense. I was like, love it. Give me that. Give me that at linebacker. And he was playing great. So, you know, Nick Martin, Oklahoma State, speedy guy, and then Demetrius Knight from South Carolina. Some interesting linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
On the defensive line, 2 edge defenders, 2 defensive tackles. James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee, just fucking explosive. Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, and then a D tackle, Tyleek Williams, Ohio State. Darius Alexander, another guy from the Senior Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, from Toledo. I'm going to save the best for last, actually. At corner, I got 5 names. Noel Williams from Cal, shout out Cal. Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky. Trey Amos from Ole Miss. Darian Porter from Iowa State. And then a pretty interesting name in Jahdae Barron from Texas. This dude, okay, Barron has been all over the board on like big boards that I've seen from like, oh yeah, he's the 32nd prospect on my big board to some people saying like, yeah, he's a top 10 prospect for me. And it's like I've seen a lot of people, especially Raiders people, saying like, the Raiders should really consider Jahdae Barron at 6th overall, or maybe in a trade back to like say, what do the Niners have, the 11th pick?
Hmm?
The Niners have the 11th pick.
Yeah, 11th pick.
Let's say the Raiders trade back to the 11th pick with the Niners, and the Niners trade up to get whoever. I don't know. Like that would be the prime position to take a Jahdae Barron, and just have a hopefully potential true number 1 corner on this team.
What about Will Johnson? Did he participate in the combine?
I'm pretty positive he didn't. He's one of those guys that was just like, yeah, I'm going top 10. I'm not doing this shit. Why would I?
Mm-hmm.
Most of those guys I think are going to be doing obviously the pro days, because they have to put something on in the numbers system. But they don't have to, but just they should. So, yeah. But the guy that just stood out amongst everybody else, the only safety prospect that I'm, talking about as of right now, is Nick Emanwori. Emanwori, however you say that. Strong safety out of South Carolina. There is a site that I love. They have a Twitter account, and I love to follow them for the combine alone. It's called the RAS, the Relative Athletic Score. Actually, I don't know what the fuck they're. Let me find their Twitter account. Damn, because they'll post players as like they get their numbers in, and they score them for like their athletic profile. So like I remember Colt Miller, he was a 10.0 out of 10.0. Or he was like a 9.98. Like he was almost perfect. And it was like, okay, cool, but like, he wasn't very he was essentially kind of a project offensive tackle. It was like we have some work to do here, but physically he is so capable. Like it's insane. And obviously it worked out. Not always does it work out. I remember Obi Melifonwu. I was so excited because it was like as a safety prospect, like he's as good as it gets physically. And it did pop on tape. It was just I don't know what it was. Got to the NFL, he just didn't know what he was doing, And half of that's the same here, sort of, for Nick Emanwori, is how I'm going to pronounce it. He got a 10.0 for this relative athletic score, not just at strong safety, also at free safety, also at corner, also at wide receiver. Physically, he's as good as it gets. And he's also a great safety, by the way. Somebody's going to draft this dude in the first round, and I don't want to say he's going to be the next Derwin James, but like that's just where my mind goes. Or like a Cam Chancellor, which becomes interesting considering Pete Carroll is the head coach of the Raiders, but I don't think we're trading back and taking a safety, obviously, at this stage and where we are, right? But man, is he an interesting player. I'm gonna try to find that account because now I'm just curious. Let's see, I probably liked a couple of their tweets. Is there any thoughts you have?
Well, immediate is, I guess, the only insight that I really have, the only relevant insight that I only ever have, has to do with names. So would you say that corner would make a man worry on the other side of the football?
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I don't really have much to add. I didn't have a lot of free time this week to really keep up with the combine, and I don't want to give disingenuous opinions when I don't really necessarily have a strong one about most of these players.
Mm. Yep.
So I wanted to save that for you as our silver and gold scouting expert.
Absolutely. I really didn't like one of their fucking tweets.
There was Emanworry the last. You said you were going to save the best for last. Was that the one?
Yeah, that was him. I sent a tweet to the silver and gold, just showing videos of like him doing the broad jump and the vertical. Yeah, he's up there with Jeremy Chin and Obi Melifano for the broad jump.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see it repeat. Hopefully, okay. It's 11 feet 6 inches.
Yeah, he almost went 12 feet just standing still and then jumping.
It's insane.
That's insane. Like, it's funny because watching the combine, or at least seeing highlights from the combine and stuff, it's just like, yeah, I mean, somebody had to do it. But when you're watching it and every other guy is doing like 10 feet, and then somebody does another 1.5 feet, it's like, holy shit.
Do you think you could do that in 2 jumps?
That's a great question. I have no idea, dude. I just wish that I timed my 40 back in like senior year of high school.
It's not too late to get into your athletic prime.
Right. Regardless, though, I would not be as fast as I used to be. Dude.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Realistically, if you got professional coaching, like from a running coach, like on how you can get faster, and you like started seeing a nutritionist and you started like working out, you don't think that you could be faster than you were before? Like, imagine if they taught you how to run in a more efficient way.
Maybe I'd have to run like Christian McCaffrey or something, but
because Olympians have coaches, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
They don't just pay people to tell them like, "Hey, push harder."
Right. But I think the problem is that I was way more flexible back then, and I also had way less body mass, period. But I'd say not to say that I have a hell of muscle or anything, but I did not have as much muscle. But period, I didn't have as much weight for sure. But like no matter what, like my body's just different now than it was then. And not even like to say like, oh, it's in a good way. Like my body was just super agile, I guess, at that age. So like running, I was just gliding in senior year of high school, dude. Like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember
I don't think I could do
ultimate
it.
frisbee. There was no frisbee in that PE class. No frisbee that it didn't matter how far it went, Mike would track it down. So you were definitely gliding. But I think the best is yet to come.
Maybe if my hips can take it, they would take it. I just
pause, man.
Yeah, well,
pause.
Well, I said I'm not going to say that. Yeah. Jesus
Whoa,
Christ.
whoa. We're talking about football, Mike.
Yeah.
We're
I
talking
said
about
hips, not my ass. Oh, great.
do you have
On the internet.
yeah, on the internet forever, but
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have any like, final thoughts about like, players that stood out at the combine before we get out of here, or you feel like you really, kind of got to everybody that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I think I got to everybody I want to talk about. At least for now, it was just, who stood out at the combine really. But this isn't like who should the Raiders draft or who should the Niners draft, anything like that. Like there's a lot of time to be spent these next couple months, um, really looking into that sort of vibe. So
Yeah,
there's not much to be
essentially
said right now.
this list is not necessarily who, I guess, to be on specific teams' radars. Well, I guess they should be on the radars, but like this isn't like a prediction of who the Niners and the Raiders are seriously looking at, but like just who, in Mike's opinion, performed well on
Right.
during the combine. So
Yeah. Who passed the eye test? Who,
yep,
who was extremely fast or extremely athletic?
yep.
Or who has
Speaking
short arms?
speaking of fast and athletic, there's a brand new medication that I guess that's my computer making that noise. I was like, what the hell is that noise? It's a brand new medication. It's kind of like Ozempic that makes you strong, fast, and athletic. It's called smashing that like button, leaving a comment, and subscribing to the channel. They say if you do it. Now, I'm not going to say for a fact, because I don't know. I can't subscribe to my own channel. Okay. I'm not saying for a fact this will happen, but word on the street is that if you comment, like, and subscribe, you will at least feel better about yourself. Okay. You know why? Because I'm going to be over here responding to your comment. And then you're going to realize, you know what? Nobody cared about what I had to say until this guy named Josh and this guy named Mike read my comment on the screen. And we all laughed together and talked about football. I hope everybody has a great night. If you want to follow us for updates on the podcast on X or on Twitter, it's at silver_gold_pod. Otherwise, you can catch us here on YouTube. We post, announcements. We should be going live again next week. Papa J sure does feel better. Smash that like button. I want you
Get ready for
to
free agency.
get ready for free agency. Next week, we're going to be talking about potential free agents. And if anything comes up and we cannot go live next week, we'll post an announcement on the channel. But so far, that's the plan next Sunday. Right, Mike? Or next
sir.
Monday or whatever. Stay tuned.
Yep. Next
Mike,
weekend.
do you have any last thoughts before we get out of here today?
No, well, just in a week and a half, I might know. It's gonna get interesting. This offseason is definitely huge. They missed out on Stafford, but we will see what happens moving forward for both teams.
I want to give a big thank you to Joel, CG Ruthless, Fossey. Big thank you to Papa J for staying with us throughout the entirety of the stream. I want to thank Wi-Fi, and I want to say that there might have been another. If I missed you, just remember that I can't remember. No, just remember we appreciate you. Feel free to tune in to future shows. We enjoy having you guys, comment. And we'll see you guys next week. Papa J says, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.